Holy Beast Tamer is an extremely rare title. The Tamer can use the powers of monsters and beasts. These are also called phantoms. On the outskirts stands the village of Griella. When a child turns 12, the priest selects their future path and explains in detail what the chosen role involves. Rock froze when he realized he had become a tamer of holy beasts. Amy admired the boy's calling and thought becoming a tamer of holy beasts was incredibly cool. But the newly minted tamer looked confused and told her the priests knew nothing about it, and she reassured him everything was fine. Isaac and Cara were confident Rock could handle his new assignment, smiled warmly and offered words of support, and the boy felt relieved and grateful. Isaac will become the world's best gladiator. Amy will become the world's best mage. Carol will become a priestess who can heal any wound. Rock will become an outstanding tamer of holy beasts. The friends decided to combine their unique abilities and talents to form a top-level team called S-Rank. The boys stood shoulder to shoulder with hands raised high, supporting one another even though each had to follow his own unique path and calling. The boy wanted to enjoy every moment of their journey together. Determined to support his friends at every stage, he worked to make each of their dreams come true. After 3 years, Rock finally came home, and as he walked in he overheard a conversation that shook him to the core, revealing his friend's plan to kick him out for good. Isaac said that this young man claimed he would become a tamer of holy beasts. So far, there is not a single strong beast under his control. Right now, he only carries things and does simple tasks anyone can do. Amy tried to object, reminding him they had always acted together, but the boy cut her off, saying their team had reached Class S status and people admired and wanted to join. They can't keep bringing someone into battle who adds nothing. They already had a brave hero in mind who wanted to join the team, so it was a great opportunity to strengthen the roster. Accepting this hero would make them kings. They had to take him because he would greatly shape the village's future. It would also bring them closer to fulfilling their cherished dreams. Amy agreed with the others, and the boy at the threshold was deeply upset. Tomorrow they'll invite the hero to the Extinction Dungeon, and together they'll clear it and say goodbye to Roku. Isaac asked Cara if she was really going to take that dress to the dungeon tomorrow. She took the dress with her because she was afraid someone might steal it if she left it unattended, and she told her friend so no one would complain about the extra bag. They ended their discussion. The young man asked Amy to tell Rock everything in person, but she asked him to wait a little. She wanted to say something else, while a quiet boy hiding nearby listened to the whole conversation, his fear and anxiety growing as his face darkened, and his heart tightened with pain and despair. His friend said the holy beast still hadn't crossed his path, and those with another calling were lucky, but thanks to his divine power, Rock gradually increased the equipment's basic stats and strengthened his friend's support magic. He handled every extra task, cooked delicious food, carried heavy bags, entertained with dances, spied in the right place, and negotiated with guild representatives. He could not understand why he was suddenly treated so coldly and unfairly. Brave Kid greeted them warmly and said it was a great honor to join such a famous squad and enter the dungeon with them. Rock seemed pleased the hero would go with them, but Isaac turned away sharply and made his displeasure clear. Kid said he had bowed to God, who gave such wonderful talents to the beautiful women, and the newcomer's compliment and polite manners pleased the young man and made him feel sympathy for the new team member. The hero turned to his assistant and asked him to handle his belongings carefully, because the bags held items the boy could never afford in his lifetime. The surprised boy immediately regretted his words, and Amy quickly explained he was not an assistant but a full member of the team, while the newcomer stared in amazement, puzzled how the young man had joined such a famous group. The kid assumed the boy was just a servant because he saw him carrying heavy things, and Cara stepped in to ease the awkwardness and urged them to move on immediately. Isaac offered Kid a look at his distinctive weapon before they set off. The dragon-slaying sword had a glorious history. The king was said to have given it to him personally, and it could defeat a dragon. Regarded as one of the great artifacts and thought nearly impossible to make, the sword had a tiny, almost invisible crack that Rock suddenly noticed. They would not let him speak. Isaac ordered them firmly to leave the boy alone and told the boys to get ready to leave quickly. Before entering the dungeon, the group cheerfully discussed their strategy, agreed to look after one another since they could only clear it together, named Cara their healer, and raised their swords to move forward while Rock stood to the side. A familiar childhood scene appeared before the young man's eyes, bringing a sense of déjà vu. He couldn't stand the memories and tried not to cry, feeling once again the pain of loneliness and uselessness. They were always together, supporting each other whether it was joy or sorrow, and the boy dreamed of making their shared dreams real, but it seems he can no longer help his friends reach their goals. In the Extinction dungeon, the friends kept shouting at Rock, calling him slow and telling him to hurry, as if he were holding them up like a turtle. With the terrain sense skill, the young man could roughly tell where and how many monsters were in the dungeon. Using the map as a guide, they could reach their destination without running into any enemies. The shortest route is not always the best. Isaac snapped at the boy, forcing him to hurry and not giving him a chance to explain. Feeling guilty, the gladiator sincerely apologized to Kid and promised to take him to the boss as soon as possible. Confidently, the young man said there were far fewer monsters in the dungeon than the last time he was here. Calming everyone, he added that even a henchman could safely go ahead and that the current route was secure. Isaac asked if the man had been here before, and Kid confirmed the man had visited the dungeon soon after it appeared, going with a self-proclaimed adventurer and narrowly escaping death when danger struck. After that, the boy resolved not to enter dungeons with anyone he saw as weak or inept because he knew how hard it was to rely on such companions, and Rock was ordered to handle the monsters and began the attack. Isaac raised his voice again, annoyed at the boy's slowness, and insisted they move faster because the request was simple and clear. The children suddenly stepped in, quietly pulling his noisy companion aside to tell him the guide was not taking the shortest route, and the news shocked the rest of the expedition. The young man loudly accused his companion of deliberately taking a roundabout route to get revenge, saying he had led them along winding paths like a cruel game to annoy the group and make the journey harder. When the boy tried to defend himself, Amy slapped him hard across the face. She asked if he still didn't get that they weren't here to have fun. The young man realized even she wasn't on his side. At first, he always made excuses for his routes, telling the others this was the way to avoid encounters with groups of monsters, and everyone trusted him and accepted the inconvenience for safety, but over time that trust began to fade. Knowing it would mean encountering many monsters, the boys insisted on the shortest route and said dealing with the threat would be easy, putting the responsibility on the boy. Amy warned the gladiator to focus on his opponents because she expected more enemies soon. The boy could not tell when his childhood friends began treating him so differently. They now regard him as a useless member of the squad. The whole team halted before a massive, breathtaking door whose size was staggering, and everyone froze, sensing the weight of the next step and the unknown beyond those majestic gates. Breathless after a long journey, the boys realized the final enemy, the dungeon's powerful boss, was hiding behind the huge door. Rock suggested they rest, but his words were misunderstood, so he repeated himself and was blamed for the other person's tiredness. Amy said he didn't realize things were only getting more dangerous as time passed. The kid felt stupid because he couldn't find his place in the group. The boy called Isaac an idiot. Isaac asked why the boy was talking down to them, then asked the girls for permission. After long hesitation over when to end their relationship with the boy, the team's patience ran out, and they decided to exclude Rock from the group permanently as soon as they left the dungeon. Instead, they planned to officially accept Kid into the squad because he had proven to be a reliable and useful companion. The boy clearly understood the group's decision, and everyone else supported it unanimously. Gathering strength and confidence, they head into the final test as the strongest, most united team, ready to defeat the formidable boss. A familiar scene from his childhood appeared before the boy's eyes as if time had turned back, filling him with a strange sense of déjà vu. Asked to look after a girl named Cara, he expected to play a small but crucial, mostly unnoticed role. Before the hero stood the dungeon boss, a huge gray wolf whose gaze radiated menace and power. Gray wolves are common dungeon bosses that even E-class adventurers can defeat, but this one is different from normal gray wolves because its fur shimmers silver, and in front of the group Fenrir is revealed as a mythical creature from the highest ranks of the monster hierarchy. This is a legendary class monster, and even an S-rank seeker must give their all to defeat it. The only sensible move was to retreat quietly to avoid exposing themselves or drawing Fenrir's attention, but Isaac was overly confident and arrogant, insisting it was just a gray wolf the group and the kid could handle. Despite Rock's efforts to stop the boys from launching a reckless attack, they ignored his warnings and charged into battle. Horrific consequences left every group member stunned as they realized the full scale of the threat looming over them. The kid swung a legendary weapon, but it crumbled when it struck Fenrir's armored hide and proved useless against the boss's strength. The boy realized the method would not work against the enemy. The wolf howled loudly. The monster's stare made the boys tremble and robbed them of the will to resist. Cara suffered most, freezing in horror and collapsing to the floor, powerless to move. The kid pleaded with the others to fall back at once, saying that even though he was very tough, his weapon had broken, and he could no longer fight the wolf effectively. Isaac refused to retreat and argued the fight had not even started. The monster proved so powerful that even asleep the damage barely affected it, so the heroes, seeing resistance was useless, had no choice but to flee at once. Gladiator was annoyed by the development, but had to accept the group's decision. Rock noticed the whole team quickly moving to the rear to get away from the angry creature. The kid instantly plunged his blade straight into the man running beside him and said gloomily that this was the role circumstances had assigned him. A cruel, malicious look spread across the young man's face, revealing the full depth of his hatred. This was the king's reserve sword, and the young man let Roku keep the other items and valuables, calling them a parting gift. A kid approached Isaac and asked to be accepted as a full member of the group, and Isaac agreed. Sitting on the ground, the boy could not understand why his friends had been so cruel to him. It was terrifying to see the beast charging straight at him, threatening to kill him. What hurt her most was Amy running past without concern, showing no sympathy or loyalty, while she coldly told him to forgive her. The boy remembered past talks with his friends, their promises to get stronger and stand by each other through any trials, Cara's trusting look asking him to protect her, and Amy proudly saying their team existed because of him. Nothing could erase it from his mind, and his heart broke at the thought that those closest to him had betrayed him. Refusing to accept the end, the boy could not believe it, and those who had promised to help had left him alone to face the monster. Fenrir opened his huge mouth wide, ready to swallow his victim whole. Despite the mortal danger, the boy on the ground could not stop crying, overwhelmed by deep loneliness and a sense of injustice after being abandoned by those he loved. The monster said aloud that people could be very cruel, leaving a tribesman to die alone, and promised the boy a quick death so he would not have time to feel pain. At those words, the young man slowly turned and looked straight into his killer's eyes, confused and afraid of the inevitable end. The boy asked the monster whether it could speak human language. Stunned, the monster realized Rock understood his speech. That seemed true. Understanding animal speech was apparently a unique skill of tamers of holy beasts. Fenrir asked the youth whether he wanted to continue the battle now that the monster was free and it would be entertaining. Rock politely refused the duel, hoping the monster would let him live. Wolf wanted to pass the time playfully, complaining about the unbearable boredom of being stuck on this dungeon level with no way to escape on his own. Determined not to die during the monster's dubious entertainment, he made an unexpected decision and quickly pulled Isaac's breastplate from his bag. With a precise throw, the young man sent it at the predator. The breastplate gleamed in the dungeon's dim light. Drawn by the scent of metal and magic, the wolf grew wary and curious about the new toy. Catching the thrown object, the wolf stared at the young man in confusion, as if asking why he was throwing things, and the boy threw the breastplate again. Curious, the predator watched the object's movement and caught it again, but could not grasp the human's cunning intent. The wolf had no idea what was happening, but the new playful game made him very happy, and childhood memories of caring for his pets helped the young man take the lead and entertain Fenrir. Remembering the monster's claim that a magical barrier made leaving the floor impossible, even for such a powerful creature, the young man risked proposing a deal, hoping to turn the situation to his advantage. The young man cautiously suggested that if the wolf escaped, the wolf would agree to go on a journey with him. The wolf laughed, thinking it a great joke. After thinking, he admitted the idea appealed to him. Fenrir never lied. The hero was stunned by those words. For the first time, he could picture a real friendship with such a creature. A voice in the boy's head said Fenrir wanted to be his friend, and hinted that he would take the first step toward true friendship, and the boy did not immediately understand, but remembered reading earlier about the tamer's profession, which described a voice appearing in the mind in detail. These were the changes happening now. The young man had long found a loyal friend in a powerful creature, and Fenrir sensed his new master's mood, shuddering slightly to show consent and readiness to serve. A voice said the wolf had become his friend because he had met all the requirements and gained access to the mini garden of monsters, and his pets could now transform. It kept speaking in his head, but the young man did not understand what was happening or what the changes would do. Determined to learn the full consequences of the recent changes, the young man watched his pet closely, as Fenrir gradually proved to be literally overflowing with unprecedented power. Loxistel introduced himself and greeted his new companion, saying he was glad to meet Fenrir, and the pet showed it felt the same. He warned that calling him Fenrir was wrong because the name belonged to the whole species, not to him. The new pet kept insisting on a worthy, memorable name that showed his uniqueness and strength, and the owner thought hard to pick the perfect nickname that reflected his four-legged friend's character and potential. The owner announced solemnly that he would name his pet Lucky and asked the wolf's opinion. Fenrir listened closely to the new name, repeated it aloud, and considered its sound and subtle pronunciation. The new friend loved the chosen name and felt truly proud to own such a magnificent title. The treasure chest drew the young man's full attention. He realized that to befriend Fenrir, he had to defeat the dungeon's strongest inhabitant. Curiosity kept him from missing the chance to examine the mysterious box's contents. Inside the chest were two unusual items, a bracelet and a large leather collar with bright red trim that caught Lucky's eye. Lucky impatiently demanded the new owner put the collar on his neck, clearly admiring how it looked. Locke slipped on the bracelet, activating the entrance to the mini-monster garden. The bracelet let him come and go freely, giving him constant access to the space for training and raising pets. A familiar voice spoke confidently in his head. Puzzled by the mysterious label Mini-Monster Garden, the young man examined the watch face to find its connection to the device he had recently discovered. To show his owner how the system worked, Lucky suddenly slipped into the watch's mechanism and disappeared from sight. After confirming the pet was well, the boy asked him if he had handled the move normally. From the depths of the clock, Lucky's cheerful voice answered, confirming he had safely returned to his cozy spot. Impressed by the new experience, the wolf warmly urged his master to try it, and Locke, persuaded by his friend, decided to take his first dive into the magical world of the miniature monster garden. Stepping forward, the boy entered a new dimension, a spacious garden filled with greenery and a calm, cozy atmosphere. Inside the miniature world, the boy stood frozen, taking in the breathtaking scene that filled his heart with delight and joy. The place felt calm and was easy to sleep in. It wasn't spacious, but it was comfortable. The temperature and conditions were kept ideal. You can use the nearby hut for storage. Many magical artifacts include devices that send objects to another dimension for safe storage, but the young man saw for the first time that one could hold living beings as well, not only the owner but guests too. When asked about his future plans, Locke said even top-ranked adventurers need rest after a hard time, so he planned to spend the near future finding and recruiting new monster allies like Lucky. The pet found the idea of finding comrades funny and promised a whole company of strong, free creatures would gather, all dreaming of escaping the underground labyrinth's hold, but the boy reminded his friend they first had to clear the current dungeon floor. Locke raced on the wolf's back as the loyal wolf urged the young man to hold on tighter to avoid losing his balance. Grateful for the attention and care, the owner warmly thanked his friend and praised his understanding. Fenrir's endurance and strength let the group move much faster than they expected. Ahead, a barrier blocked the exit, but their speed suggested the stairs would soon take the heroes outside. The young man told his faithful assistant to change direction and take the opening on the right instead of the straight passage. The wolf, surprised, asked why, since the straight path led directly to the exit. The boy explained they would face many dangerous groups of monsters ahead. The friend approved the decision, glad a wise and careful companion was nearby. They turned right, but soon the boy asked Lucky to stop for a while. They found a cluster of monster bodies this time. Locke suggested collecting trophies to sell for profit and using some parts for food. Lucky perked up at the thought of a tasty dinner. Seeing the advantage, the boy activated resource collection mode. The loyal pet was amazed by its owner's clever way of collecting and storing supplies, and while the boy rode it, the pet instinctively sensed the method and helped make the idea work. He asked his pet to try the technique again, but it failed. Lucky tried and accidentally broke the resource he'd extracted into small pieces. Disappointed and upset by his clumsiness, the wolf could barely hold back his tears. Fenrir admitted his mistake, saying he had used too much force and damaged the material. Determined to fix it, he promised to use his claw tips to gently work the object without harming its structure. Then the wolf reactivated the folding ability. The material was damaged again, and the young man calmly said that whatever the outcome, the main rule is to never damage materials when collecting them. They must be ready to solve a real problem. The pet whined pitifully as it touched the magical barrier, its paws blocking the path to freedom. The barrier proved extremely strong, so the wolf realized he could not get past it on his own. The adventure was short but unusually bright and cheerful, leaving many unforgettable memories and feelings. The owner urged his friend not to give up and to try breaching the barrier by using a portal in a miniature monster garden. Understanding the plan, Loki immediately entered the watch's pocket dimension, ready to support any tactic. There were no guarantees of a successful crossing. The barrier was powerful, and it was unclear whether anyone could pass it safely. The passage through the barrier was smooth and uneventful. Back in the real world, the wolf happily praised the master's skill in overcoming the obstacles so gracefully and effectively. The boys left the dungeon safely and faced no obstacles or difficulties on their way. True to form, Fenrir thanked his master for freeing him from years of imprisonment. Having never suspected such an escape was possible, Lucky looks forward to their next journey together. Locke wants to interact more with new allies, hoping to build friendly relations and find common ground with future teammates and a new friend. With his palm down, the boy made a fist to invite the monster to shake it as a sign of good luck and trust. Lucky gently touched his hand with his nose, making contact. This simple gesture marked a historic moment, the first true friendship between Locke and the Fenrir representative. In Kronto, the royal capital, every citizen watched the giant wolf that filled the capital square, afraid. FRNRIR stood in the middle of the street. The young man knew such a reaction was natural and predictable given the unusual guest's size and appearance. The soldiers quickly took up defensive positions near the Adventurers Guild building when they saw a giant gray wolf approaching and ready to attack, and Locke tried to convince the guards to wait, assuring them the wolf was his pet and would not attack. Ignoring his words, the soldiers paid no attention, and at that moment the guild door opened as Rika, the Adventurers Guild administrator, came to see what was really happening. She greeted the young man warmly, and the boy replied happily before asking if he should be exploring the dangerous Flame of Destruction dungeon with his team right now. Rickon noticed the large dog with the boy, but he quickly corrected her, saying it was his pet Fenrir, not a dog. The wolf greeted the girl warmly. She was amazed to learn she was dealing with a figure from legend. Congratulating the boy on earning the title of Tamer, the girl noted how rare and difficult the feat was. A man in the crowd stared in disbelief. Before him stood the famous Fenrir, now an obedient and faithful assistant to an ordinary man. The administrator said that to officially recognize the new team member, the pet had to be registered, and meanwhile Lucky made himself comfortable in the square, snoring softly and ignoring the fuss around him. After registering, the girl asked worriedly about the rest of the team, and the young man, puzzled to learn his former companions had not appeared, said a kid had treacherously attacked him and left him in a dark dungeon. Rika checked on the boy to make sure he was safe and sound. Kid's sword turned out not to be sharp enough to seriously injure Locke, which helped avoid a tragedy. The administrator recalled recent rumors that Kid's reputation was poor. Rumors began when this villain joined the Class B adventurers to explore the Flames of Destruction dungeon, and the expedition ended in disaster with only the Kid and one other member surviving. Rumor soon spread that the Kid had deliberately used his comrades as bait to save himself, sacrificing them for his own survival. Locke privately agreed the rumor was true. The girl asked with interest why he had been the target of the latest incident, and the boy went pale and said he thought he was the group's least useful member and was ashamed to admit his weaknesses. Rika was baffled because she thought Locke was the team's most useful member. Locke was surprised since his duties could have been handled by anyone else. As soon as they entered the dungeon, he was kicked out. Rika was in shock. The administrator insisted his information was wrong, but their squad reached the high S class because of the young man's effort and talent, and without him, the ranking would drop to B class. Locke argued their abilities should not be reassessed, and the demotion was unfair, but the girl said betrayal and breaking the team's code were serious offenses that could not be ignored or left unpunished. Their failure to return from the S-rank dungeon shows their true abilities. They stayed behind as part of the team with the Kid. Just as the young man was about to help his former comrades, the administrator stopped him and warned that they might do the same to him again. Locke agreed with the girl's point, but stressed that his main reason for returning was to retrieve personal belongings left in the dungeon. Rika understood the young man's motives and told him he could leave. At the exit, the boy was greeted by his faithful pet, which was playing among the children who were fascinated by interacting with the unusual animal. When the owner asked the animal to go on a journey, the pet firmly refused, saying he would not risk being betrayed by the same people twice. Accepting Lucky's words, the young man understood this case would be his last act of helping people who had lost the right to trust and clearly define the boundaries of the relationship. The owner believed his decision was best for the pet and did not try to persuade his friend. The children gathered, waved sadly at the travelers, and said goodbye to the pet that had become part of their childhood memories. The decision was right and timely. Feeling inner harmony and acting in sync, the young man and his partner set off cheerfully in search of new adventures. Meanwhile, in the Flame of Destruction dungeon, Kid angrily lashed out at his companions, wondering why, even without a map, none of them could remember the way back to the exit. Isaac told him to calm down because Isaac himself did not remember the way back. Cara said Locke had helped them navigate the dungeon. Kid protested that they deserved the title of S-rank adventurers, but their efficiency was clearly declining, which stunned everyone. The guys came here from the 10th floor and told the brave man to stop complaining because he didn't know how to use a weapon either, and Kid clicked his tongue in annoyance, reminding them that they had chosen a different, shorter path but still kept running into monsters. Expecting the monsters to weaken as they moved down, he found instead that they grew stronger and did not know what to do. The group paused to rest and regain strength, and Isaac encouraged the others, promising they would soon reach the fourth floor, where the monsters would be weaker than their current opponents, so the main thing was to endure and reach the goal. The young man asked about Kid's sword, but Kid cut him off, told him to worry about his own weapon first, and pointed out how good the young man's blade was. He said the sword had been bought in a shop on a city street, and throughout its use, the blade never got a scratch or a spot of rust. The brave man asked to show his poles to everyone. Kid poply eyed his weapon and said he couldn't understand how he ended up with such a mediocre group of losers. Another boy demanded to know what he meant. He insisted no one understood the main point. They had survived all this time only because their protector's divine protection had kept them safe. Rising to S rank in under 3 years is impossible. The boys argued otherwise, saying they had achieved success through their own efforts and talents. Kid flatly denied their claims, insisting their success came not from merit but from the blessing of their former friend. Divine protection only works while the caster is present, prevents swords and poles from being damaged or contaminated, and also raises an ally's basic stats to improve their combat performance. A revelation showed the team had been under divine protection the whole time, but they had never thanked the spellcaster, who ensured their success, and the group was stunned. Without a magic caster's support, the team was B rank, and they only reached S rank because of that support. Tension rose immediately, and Isaac realized that reaching S rank as an adventurer was possible only because Locke had helped shape his attributes. He remembered his friend being praised, and himself always being encouraged to improve his skills. Even after leaving the team, he remained the best at everything. Gladiator stubbornly refused to accept that and claimed the team's success as his own. Amy frowned skeptically, seeing how absurd that view was. The brave man saw the boy as a problem and asked the others about their fighting skills. After finding out Cara could cast only 1 or 2 healing spells, he moved on to Amy to keep evaluating each person's contribution to the victory. After learning the girl could accumulate magic and was skilled in martial arts, he began to develop battle tactics that used each team member's strengths. Reaching the 4th floor requires the team to first face 5 orange ants. The problem gets worse because the ants will inevitably call for reinforcements. Given all known data, a direct assault would be highly unwise. The kid asked the healer to heal every team member. Isaac took the vanguard, the mage stayed directly behind him, the healer followed the mage, and the young man himself took the tail of the column to secure the rear. Cara confirmed she understood the order. All team members were restored and confirmed they were ready to follow the plan. The next order arrived: do not turn around, they were going to break through. Without warning, Kid slipped in and attacked Cara from behind. Cynically, the young man congratulated the girl for finishing the final task that healed the team. He now thought she was no longer useful. The girl, however, was pleased. She would now make excellent bait to help the rest of the group escape. Stunned, Cara could not believe what had happened, and tears blurred her vision as she cried out to her comrades, begging them not to leave her and to save her from this terrible fate. Abandoned without hesitation, the girl was left alone, overwhelmed by horror and despair, and death came for her instantly. Isaac asked why the young man had killed Cara. The young man replied that he had no choice and that the sacrifice was necessary to ensure everyone's survival. He said confidently that what happened in the dungeon would remain a secret, known only to a select few, including the men themselves, who had become unwitting accomplices to the dark event. The boys stood there, stunned by what they had heard. Kid explained that the servant's presence had greatly benefited them, and that the servant's betrayal would be strong proof of their full involvement in the crime. The young man was disgusted to realize he had joined a team of losers and warned them not to expect his cooperation in the future. Isaac told him to shut up, since the boy was nowhere near as strong as he pretended. The gladiator rushed in desperately, but his blows were useless against the 4th floor monsters, and until recently fighting giant ants had been much easier, yet now it was hard to believe how difficult they were to overcome. Distracted by the brave man's words, Isaac let his guard down and was ambushed from behind. Out of nowhere, Locke appeared riding a huge wolf and immediately attacked the giant ants. Lucky's attack scattered the insects and instantly shifted the fight. The boys stood frozen in shock. Isaac said the man should have died long ago. The young man objected, insisting he had returned from hell itself. The pit wondered if it was worth dealing with his comrades right there down below, since everything could go unnoticed within the dungeon walls. Amy begged her companion to save Cara, left alone on level 5. Locke was horrified to learn she had suffered the same fate, a cruel betrayal. He had insisted that their salvation required a sacrifice and that there was no choice. Tamer reacted sharply and called everyone scum. Lucky rejected that stance as absurd, saying the others had betrayed him personally and now had the nerve to ask for his support. Realizing this was extremely unpleasant, because until then the comrades had not reflected on their own actions at all, and the owner ordered them to move on. Noticing the boy's amazingly kind heart, the pet guessed the dress carelessly thrown on top of the backpacks probably belonged to Cara, and the wolf winced at an unpleasant smell that turned out to be perfume. They moved on, leaving the rest of the former team behind. On the 5th floor, the friends fought many enemies and won battle after battle. Huge swarms of ants poured out, drawn by the smell of fresh blood, leaving their nests and rushing toward the source, and even with Fenrir's power there were too many. The young man rushed to help his loyal pet. With Lucky nearby, the owner felt completely confident and fearless. They finally won. Defeated monsters littered the floor around them. The wolf praised the boy, noting the remarkable techniques he had mastered in battle. The boy said it was the first time he had shown such combat skill. Together they made a great team, able to overcome any difficulty. The boy reached out and gently placed his hand on his pet's nose, celebrating their shared victory and the strong bond between them. The heroes now faced a new mission to find the missing Cara, and Fenrir pointed confidently in that direction, saying the person they were looking for was right there. The girl lay still on the ground, surrounded by a pool of her blood. Locke stood beside her, looking down with a sad expression. Vivid memories of the girl mixing magical restoration potions and sincerely thanking him for his support and concern returned to him. Locke deeply regretted his delay, knowing he had missed the chance to act in time, and remembering that Cara had helped make the healing potion, he quietly cursed his luck and thought he should have been the one to thank her. She woke up suddenly and gave a weak smile, making the people around her laugh at how unexpected it was. Speaking weakly, Cara wondered why the boy was there while she was still alive and had not gone to heaven, and she added with guilt that she regretted her betrayal and knew she could not undo the harm she had caused. He cut her off and said those actions no longer mattered, because with the girl declared dead, they had a different serious problem. Fenrir, the formidable guardian of the underworld's gates, embodied the threat. Meeting him will be unavoidable, and the battle ahead will be difficult and dangerous. Cara looked at him, then fainted again. The young man realized Cerberus was the guardian of the gates of hell. When the young man was ready to go home, he asked his pet to carry the injured girl on his broad back, and the pet agreed this time, saying the favor was done only out of respect for his owner and must not be repeated. Locke thanked his friend heartily, not expecting to hear something so touching and kind, and noticed a strange passage nearby. It was the entrance to the home of the fierce orange ants. Delighted at the chance to taste his favorite treat, Lucky rushed forward, jumping up and down, and the owner hurried after him, calling for him to wait. Rows of neatly arranged eggs laid by large orange ants appeared before them, and the pet drooled at the sight. One egg was a different color from the rest, while the others looked like they'd been deliberately crushed on the outside. The egg cracked open, and a swarm of angry orange ants spilled out. Fear made the boy scream when he saw new creatures crawling out of the egg, and one of the aggressive ants, flashing its paws, called him Daddy. Locke was stunned when insects called him Daddy, and Lucky explained the situation. It turned out the man had postponed the trip because he already knew there were women outside. The young man was completely confused, trying to figure out what they meant. A voice in his head told him confidently that the orange ants wanted to be friends, and asked whether he would befriend the whole colony. Locke knew they had just brutally dealt with a group of orange ants, and leaving them alone now seemed too risky, so after weighing the situation, he accepted the offer of friendship. From this moment on, the whole colony of orange ants officially became his familiars. The ants took on human form, and a mysterious voice transported the whole company to a tiny garden. Locke said he would visit the mini garden of monsters, and left his pet to look after Cara, so the loyal assistant immediately carried out the order, and Locke himself set off. A voice told the boy that befriending 6 new monsters would let him improve his mini-monster garden. It suggested choosing 6 functions he wanted to upgrade. These improvements felt new and unusual to him. He chose upgrades for the river, the pond, the hut, and the fruit tree. Locke believed that expanding the spatial extent of this dimension would increase the field size. Everything around began to change noticeably. The young man stood frozen, taken aback by the view that opened before him. The garden had stretched outward into a vast green field. Looking into the distance, he noticed busy ants at work. They eagerly tackled household chores across the vast renovated space. He asked what the little helpers were doing. It turned out the ants were sorting valuable resources left over from the monster he had defeated earlier. At first, Locke doubted that the small creatures could do the work, but they said it matched their natural specialization. One of the little girls timidly asked if he was behaving well enough, addressing him affectionately as Daddy, and the boy felt slightly put off by the address but smiled softly and gently stroked her head. Laughing loudly, the girl genuinely enjoyed the moment. At last, the young man realized being called Daddy wasn't as bad as he first thought. He wondered why the little girl wore a tiara, as it seemed to set her apart from the ordinary representatives of the orange and breed, making her unique. Locke tensed inside, realizing he could not relax now. The young man relied on the ants and said goodbye. Lucky immediately sensed his master's return and announced excitedly that a real catastrophe had occurred. The boy anxiously asked what had happened and what had become of Cara. All the eggs were empty, so the pet could not even try one, and the young man felt deeply disappointed. The owner promised that as soon as the work was finished, he would give the wolf a special treat. Locke felt a little relieved by those warm words. Outside the majestic Adventurers Guild in the royal capital, the owner left Lucky waiting again, apologizing for his forgetfulness. The wolf quietly obeyed the command and waited humbly for his master. Suddenly, a familiar, unpleasant voice broke the silence, making the young man wary as he looked around for its owner. Desperately, the young man insisted he was innocent, saying the crime involved only members of his party and he had no part in it. Isaac objected sharply, saying the accusation targeted the whole friend group, not him personally, and asked why only Kid and Isaac were brought in to resolve a conflict that affected everyone. Rika told those present that Mr. Locke had asked them to wait for his return and added nothing more. When the mysterious gentleman finally appeared, the girl was genuinely happy and confidently declared that everything would now work out for the best. Both vehemently denied the accusations. Then the kid approached the young man to ask for clarification on the baseless accusations made by the Adventurers Guild, stressing how absurd the situation was. The boy clarified exactly what needed clarifying, referring to the troubles in the fight with the fourth-floor monsters despite the group's S-rank, and to the time he used Cara as bait and deliberately wounded her on the 5th level. He immediately recalled another similar incident. The boy remembered an incident when he had stabbed him while fleeing from Fenrir. When Isaac heard this, he jumped up and insisted that the boy did not understand what was being said. The kid told his friend to calm down, then turned to Mr. Locke and said that being expelled from an S-class party does not give anyone the right to spread lies and make unfounded accusations. In the end, this man had no solid proof he was right. His concern was elsewhere. It was disturbing that a nasty character could lie with a sincere expression. Tension hung in the air, marking the end of baseless accusations. Children emphasized that accusing someone without good reason is unfair. Reminding everyone that he had been named as hero of the kingdom, he warned he would report everything to the king immediately. After finishing his speech, the kid looked at the boy and asked if he had understood the main point of his argument. Mr. Locke saw how serious it was and asked for a short break. Taking a piece of the villain's blade, he carefully pressed it against the wound in his armor. The blade matched the damage mark exactly. He then looked at Kid to see if the physical evidence would satisfy him. Kid was so amazed by what he saw that he froze. The brave hero tried to wriggle out by suggesting the boy could have inflicted the wound on himself and glanced at Isaac for confirmation. But Isaac remained silent, realizing his attempt to explain had failed and understanding the gravity of his situation. Locke demanded an explanation for the condition of a girl named Cara, implying the possible consequences of what had happened, and Amy was deeply shocked by what she saw. Kneeling, the mage begged forgiveness and bitterly blamed herself for not reaching her friend in time, even though she had needed support, and felt deep, sincere guilt for her delay. Kid said coldly that the girl died because she could not defend herself and insisted the group had nothing to do with it, and Walk repeated the words involuntarily, unable to believe his ears. The young man confessed he had fatally stabbed the girl in the back, and the brave man said that with no evidence and the victim unable to confirm, proving the truth would be extremely difficult. The tamer urged Cara to wake up and identify the man who attacked her, and when she woke she thought it was a prank and cried out. Amy felt confused and shocked, and the girls sneered that the young man was scary. The priestess warmly wished everyone a good morning. Amy ran up happily to hug her, but Locke drew the group's attention by gesturing to the side. A motionless, gloomy, irritated child stood there. Cora lashed out angrily, shouting that he had dared to use her as bait, then sarcastically called him an evil, murderous demon. The townspeople rioted, shouting that the kid had no right to call himself a hero. The accused tried in vain to defend his reputation, offering arguments in his defense. Rika, however, said the attempts were pointless because the witness's testimony was enough to prove his guilt. Attacking one's allies, betrayal, attempted murder, failing to protect one's comrades, and flagrantly ignoring the adventure code should at minimum lead to the loss of one's hero status. Locke politely asked if he could leave now. The receptionist said he could and thanked him for his cooperation. Someone called to him. Isaac dropped to his knees. Isaac apologized profusely for his mistake, saying he had no choice, but he still insisted on keeping his status as a high-ranking S-class adventurer. Locke sternly asked Isaac whether he had known beforehand about the kid's plans to commit murder. Isaac claimed he didn't understand the question. Locke added that while heading to the dungeon, he heard a remark about a kid joining the team. He took this as proof that the veteran gladiator had long been plotting to kill him and would seize any chance. The former friend flatly denied the accusation, saying he had acted only out of concern for his comrade. Isaac said excitedly that the Tamer reached S-class solely because of his efforts, but Rika quickly replied that Lord Locke's wise actions earned the whole party the honor of being top-ranked adventurers. The young man was the only member of the group with S-class rank, while his teammate was at best B-class. Rika said she was confident that even if Mr. Locke allied with lower E-class members, the result would be the same. The boy begged the secretary to stop tormenting him, insisting the girl was only slandering him. That matched the real situation. Isaac challenged the Tamer to a duel. Under the terms, if the Tamer won, the gladiator would accept the situation and submit. If Isaac won, all charges would be dropped. The administrator and Mr. Locke approved holding a duel under the proposed conditions. The guild tested the young man's skills by assigning him to assemble a team that included one additional low-ranking E-rank member. A reward was promised if he succeeded. This was the first official request after a long stretch of solo playthroughs. Because the party would be temporary, the participant agreed quickly. Meanwhile, the secretary began listing the names of the characters who would make up the alternative party. The party included Isaac, Cara, and Amy. As for the child, he was temporarily suspended from the events on suspicion of murder. The man insisted there was no objective evidence of his guilt. Soon, a man in the crowd stepped forward to testify. That witness proved to be a member of the well-known A-class party Black Spear, and the events took place in the Extinction Dungeon, where the kid's friends fully trusted him and saw him as an honest, dependable comrade. He did his best to support his friend, telling the townspeople about the incident as soon as he returned to the city, but the accounts of the unknown adventurer were not enough to shake the established hero's authority. The adventurer felt deep guilt, convinced he had not done enough to protect his friend's honor. After hearing his account, the administrator observed that the hero's connections and influence cannot change the facts when there is clear evidence of a crime. The kid said proudly that he shouldn't have joined such an insignificant party because he had nothing to lose. Sarcastically, he said he had completely forgotten to mention why guilt had decided to detain him, since he was sure the reasons for such a hasty arrest were unclear even to himself. Mr. Locke urged the young hero to stop causing trouble and avoid any more conflicts, and Kid replied defiantly that he was not used to being demoted or losing his status and would defend his position at any cost. The young hero pressed the tip of his sword to Amy's neck, clearly threatening her life. The others involved urged him to stop, assuring him the lost trust could still be regained and guild relations restored. The kid was stubborn, insisting on stepping aside and saying he had no intention of staying in such a stupid organization. Mr. Locke kept urging him to free the girl, but the brave man cut him off and warned sternly that if he did not want to be blamed for our deaths, he should step back now and let him pass. The kid warned them to leave and not become prey to monsters, then hurried off carrying the weapon and the girl. Everyone ran after the fugitive to rescue the kidnapped girl. There was no need to panic. The girl was completely safe, and her faithful pet Lucky sat patiently beside her. The wolf came over and cheerfully asked his owner what he thought of his actions. The tailed favorite tried not to knock the child over with its paws. Mr. Locke thanked his faithful companion for his timely response. Together, the hero and his trusty animal captured the criminal without needless noise or fuss. The boy resisted the guard's attempt to shackle him, twisting and breaking free from the officer's firm grip. The owner warmly thanked his loyal assistant, who modestly said it was nothing and not worth thanks. Loyal and attentive, the companion approached his friends and returned their personal belongings, which he had kept safe. Timidly, Amy stepped forward, bowed her head, and quietly apologized for the whole incident, feeling deeply ashamed and embarrassed. Mr. Locke gently halted the apologies, saying too much self-blame was inappropriate, while Isaac clutched his head in dismay and said the long-awaited competition seemed to be canceled. With no choice, he agreed to bring his former ally back onto the team, then sighed, keenly aware of how absurd it was. Mr. Locke refused outright to join a team made up of former allies. Cara stepped closer and said gravely that the young man had endured the worst betrayal and deserved a second chance to prove himself in her group. The boy could not believe this had happened and was stunned that she had once left him in trouble. Refusing to be on the same team with people like that, he declared he would not join them while the girl tried to justify her behavior. Cara blamed Isaac, saying he had earlier called Mr. Locke worthless and useless. Isaac replied that the girl herself had said the same thing. Amy asked everyone to stop fighting. Deep in the dangerous dungeons, every team member clearly saw the boy's contribution, but none admitted his obvious superiority and instead chose to ignore reality and keep the illusion that their abilities were equal. Frankly, the girl admitted that the group members alone bear all responsibility for what happened. The administrator stepped forward and said it was time to begin the assigned test. Sheepishly, the young man apologized for the delay and inconvenience. When told there was nothing to worry about, Rika explained the upcoming competition. It would begin with a C-rank difficulty test and gradually rise to B-rank. Isaac dismissed the chosen tasks as too easy and unsuitable for their skills, pointed out that the secretary was clearly underestimating the team's abilities, and declared he was in no danger of losing. They needed to obtain the following items: an egg of the rainbow dragonfly orango, scales, claws, and a fang from a flying dragon, and fresh green emeralds. To complete the task, they must present any one of these items within 1 week. Mr. Locke judged the tasks fairly easy, but asked Isaac carefully if he was certain he had made the right choice. Isaac's former friend reacted sharply, saying it was wrong to assume the young man would run away since he still had a chance to return to the team. He reacted with loud indignation, wondering why they would ask that. The secretary replied that they suspected he might be considering leaving the team because of its S-class status. The gladiator was stunned. The boy quickly grasped the subtext. The guild has all the information they need, including records of every mission the team completed, and they also know that Cara is intolerant to Oregon, Amy is afraid of demonic insects, and Isaac is paralyzed by the sight of a frog. Locke saw it as a guild warning that rule breakers would not escape punishment. The gladiator confidently said they would finish the task, and the secretary waited for the mission's outcome as the team set off. She introduced the E-rank adventurer to the young man, and the owner told Lucky they would be a little late and asked him to let the pet rest here, which the magical animal obediently accepted. Rika asked which parts of team building the boy found hardest to endure, and the young man said betrayal and failing to follow orders were unbearable because he alone bore full responsibility for every party member's life. Locke asked in bewilderment whether it was right to settle such matters that way. The girl replied that it was normal and stressed that, despite her appearance, she was the guild's deputy director with special powers. Rika made clear she wasn't the typical pretty administrator. The young man immediately remembered she'd been the guild administrator for the past 3 years. The girl still had her old charm and looked almost unchanged, though she admitted she had gained a lot of weight in the guild and was no longer young. She showed interest in what was happening, and Mr. Locke explained he was trying to get to know his real teammate. Noting the adventurer's very unusual situation, the secretary did not expect her to betray or openly oppose the team. The young man became interested in the situation's peculiarities. Rico felt doubtful. Either way, the newcomer would meet them soon at the training grounds, and she hoped Locke would teach her a lesson. They entered the building together. A graceful young girl, wearing a collar, stood before them. The administrator introduced the stranger as the elf Shannon. The young man immediately realized the new member was an elf adventurer with a low E-rank. A slave collar circled the girl's neck. The secretary said the elf had been enrolled in the guild for a reason. The elf was both a slave and an adventurer. Mr. Locke seemed puzzled about the significance, and Rika replied sympathetically that Shannon's 5 previous owners had died under questionable circumstances or suddenly in accidents. Everything seemed like a string of coincidences: 2 deaths from natural causes, 1 poisoning, a fall from a cliff, and a demon attack, with events happening one after another. The girl's former owner had business ties to the guild, so she is now listed as an official member of the organization. Locke was sure a string of deaths like that was not just bad luck. Shannon said she was a Dark Reaper and knew the young man had not sought his own death, so he should refuse the task. Trying to calm her, the young man said the adventure was meant to be a one-time thing, but the girl took his words as a threat and immediately became aggressive. Stopping the attack just inches from the boy's throat, the girl warned firmly that we who cannot defend or dodge should not try to touch her. The Tamer couldn't understand why he acted that way when he could have acted differently. Shannon, by contrast, could not understand why he failed to see how clear her position was. The girl said angrily that the boy was deliberately heading toward his death, leaving Locke completely bewildered. Shannon said she was forced to live like a slave because she had once refused to live fully. Now fate set boundaries that limited her freedom. It made no sense for the last boy to follow the same path and willingly become part of someone else's problems. She had grown tired of watching yet another person die in similar circumstances. The boys watched with compassion as the girl, holding back tears, tried to cope with overwhelming emotions and sobbed. After careful thought, Locke concluded that if he became stronger in spirit and more experienced than the girl, he could avoid problems. Beyond practical concerns, his heart would not let him abandon such a sensitive, kind companion. Shannon asked him to shut up, but the young man stubbornly held his ground, showing his strength of character. The girl struggled to hold back tears that were about to burst out. The girl realized the young man had shown remarkable resilience and would not abandon his chosen path under any circumstances. Determined to show him the full danger, the elf immediately demonstrated her fighting skills and attacked. The boy held his ground, deftly dodging and repelling the swift attacks just in time. She was naturally very fast and had certainly landed thousands of blows in her life, handling her weapon with skill. After knocking the weapon from the girl's hands, the young man said his practiced moves had been flawless but carried one major flaw. The strike's trajectory was predictable, and with that remark he ended the fight. Angry, the elf attacked again and said firmly she had never lost a fight. Locke judged Shannon's basic training solid, but her combat techniques failed to achieve his goals. He took her hand, warned her it would hurt a little, and laid her down on the ground in one motion. The boy declared the fight over, but the Reaper refused to accept it, and even after admitting defeat, she still believed the boy would die, while the young man asked not to be killed without permission and insisted he would not die. Shannon said she would die anyway, because others had said the same thing and later died. So the girl stood firm, saying she had no right to let herself be defeated. Brimming with confidence, Locke said he would show the real reason he would not die, warned Shannon not to be so shocked she might faint, and prepared to reveal his secret. The young man summoned the legendary Fenrir from his mini-garden, leaving the elf stunned and amazed. The powerful creature's arrival released waves of magic that could be felt physically. A towering column of energy burst from Lucky, filling the space with a sparkling glow. Shannon stared wide-eyed, unable to believe what she saw as the magnificent Fenrir had become a personal familiar, obeying an ordinary boy's command. Locke praised his magical pet softly, but the girl remained puzzled and didn't know who this unusual young man really was. She was told to wait and realized it was her brother, who had been secretly following her again. Shannon's younger brother Seth was born 5 years after her. They were both born and raised in an elven family. The girls truly believed their whole future would be quiet and peaceful. One day, Seth vanished without a trace in the mysterious forest of affection. While her parents tried their best to find her brother, Shannon had to look after the house. Her parents had ordered her to stay, but when she feared her beloved brother was in danger, she could no longer wait calmly at home and went to look for him. Only one place remained to check. An ancient mansion once belonged to a powerful magician. The forest where children often played became a symbol of the lasting friendship between human mages and elves, and was called the Forest of Affection. In that mysterious forest stood a majestic mansion owned by a powerful magician. Only a chosen few were allowed to cross its threshold. Centuries had passed, yet the mansion looked exactly as she remembered from childhood, no sign of age or decay. If Seth was not in the forest, he had to be inside. Shannon pushed the heavy doors open with determination. No one had lived here for a long time, yet there wasn't a speck of dust. Anxiety gripped the girl. She had no idea what kind of place this was. Shannon called her brother's name loudly, hoping a familiar voice would answer. She found her brother lying motionless on a large wooden table in the center of the room. The girl ran up to him immediately, his heart pounding, his breathing quick and uneven, and he needed to get home right away. Suddenly, a huge black eye appeared before her, radiating dark, ominous power and a threatening presence. Confused, the elf stared at the strange phenomenon, unsure what it was. Suddenly, the mansion's massive doors slammed shut, cutting off the way back. She carefully put her weak brother on her back, wondering why the doors stayed locked. The huge black eye reappeared silently and asked which of them would be saved. Shannon told them to save Seth, and the black eye began to close slowly. The black eyes suddenly sent a powerful burst of energy at the girl, knocking her out and leaving her with no memory of what happened afterward. Shannon woke up in her own bed, and her brother was smiling as if yesterday's story had just happened. She thought it might be just a simple dream, but soon strange events started happening that made her doubt that explanation. Creatures around her began dying one after another as the death count steadily rose. The day finally came when their beloved horse died. Shannon warned her parents, but they brushed her off as imagining things. Realizing delay would bring disaster to the whole family, she decided to act alone and quietly left the village without telling anyone. Used to the safety of her home village, the elf found the outside world harsh and cruel, and after a while she realized she was a slave. Despite her new situation, her first owner told her the best way to survive was to study and learn about the world, showing great kindness and patience while teaching the young captive basic life skills and about the outside world. 6 months later, the kind owner died suddenly, as if he had fallen into an eternal sleep and left this world. She grew increasingly convinced she had caused her first owner's death, though she could not admit it. 3 months later, the second owner suddenly died of an unknown disease. The third died even faster. A week later, he fell from a cliff. The fourth mistress took the poison herself, and the fifth died when a ferocious monster attacked her. Everyone who came into contact with her died. People nicknamed her the Grim Reaper and began to avoid her and cut off contact. The elf refused to let anyone die. When the girl reached her lowest point, an organization calling itself the Guild took her in. Wanting to avoid dealing with anyone, she hoped to go to prison. The Guild saw her differently. Rika asked to join their party as an E-rank adventurer. The Reaper preferred being alone, so she openly told new acquaintances the full story of her tragedies and tried to convince them not to recruit her. Sometimes words worked, other times she had to use physical force. Determined to avoid the walking death, the girl stayed away for a long time until a man appeared one day. The stranger introduced himself as Locke's sister and said he was pleased to meet her. Shannon tried as usual to dissuade her new acquaintance, but for the first time he responded seriously and did not intend to back down. Shocked that such a strong fighter, an elite S-class member, had been expelled from the team, she still noticed his rare kindness and sincerity and wondered why he was not afraid of the coming death and why he would risk his life to stand by her. To prove he was invulnerable, the boy summoned the legendary Fenrir. The legendary wolf appeared, and the elf stared in astonishment. Hard to believe this was really happening. With incredible abilities, he subdued the legendary wolf Fenrir and made him his familiar, a revelation that stunned Shannon. People feared her and wanted her dead, and she came to believe her own death would be the best outcome because she had hidden her true feelings even from herself. Bursting into tears, the elf realized that despite everything, she still wanted to live with fierce resolve. Maybe this is someone you can trust. Exhausted by her ordeal, the girl fainted. The young man turned to her with concern and asked if she was all right. Rika said the girl was fine. The recent shock seemed to have been a severe test and left her deeply tired. She looked as if a heavy burden had just been lifted from her heart. The secretary ordered that she be allowed to rest a little. Lucky immediately turned to the owner. The pet felt guilty for being harsh with the girl and called it a mistake. Locke calmed him, saying everything had worked out and thanked his friend. Seeing his beloved owner's approval, Fenrir burst into tears of happiness and offered a prayer of thanks to the heavens. The wolf cautiously asked the owner what he planned to do about the trembling bird. When the pet let out a long howl, the frail bird suddenly went limp and fell to the ground. The young man said that was exactly what had happened. When it came to, the bird fluttered in fear. A voice in his head said the skybird wanted to be Locke's friend and offered to be its friend, and Locke found it unexpected and funny and agreed to make more friends. A voice said the bird had befriended them and moved into the garden. The owner thought their circle of friends would gradually grow and saw this as a great sign. Lucky wanted to taste the bird, but the young man forbade eating friends. Shannon came out and was asked if she felt better. The girl apologized for her earlier behavior, but the boy rejected the apology, believing she was motivated by a desire to protect others' well-being. The elf felt grateful, aware of her lack of experience, yet she still asked to be accepted into the squad. Both were genuinely happy about their new acquaintance, and even Lucky enjoyed meeting his new companion. Locke imagined how people would react if the pet pointed its paw at the girl, but she calmly said everything was fine. After all, he had convinced the owner he was making progress, and the owner feared he might blow her up. The crucial point was that after touching Shannon, the wolf confidently declared she was under a powerful curse. He added that this kind of curse is a deeply unpleasant phenomenon that drains the life energy of those nearby and sooner or later exhausts the victim, destroying his life. That explained why people were dying around Shannon. Locke immediately asked how to remove the destructive curse. Lucky couldn't lift the curse. It was a delicate matter and not his field. The owner would probably manage while the young man talked. The wolf decided to take the owner's head for a second. Surprised, the boy asked what was happening, then suddenly felt the needed information pour into his mind like a stream of water filling a cup. It was the opposite of divine protection. The owner never suspected his pet had such powers. Now he was offered a chance to test his strength and try to lift the curse. Without warning, the guild leader stepped in and flatly refused to allow the curse to be lifted, leaving the boy completely confused. The young man asked indignantly what the guild leader meant by forbidding the removal of the curse. Titus said the boy knew Shannon was guild property and therefore part of the collective. Under the guild's internal rules, outsiders were not permitted to remove dangerous curses. Locke tried to object, insisting there was no time. The man said this was typical of Locke and warned that if Locke let his emotions take over, he would risk the same fate as Isaac. The guild leader said a lot had happened recently and asked if the boy was tired. The boy said yes, and then wondered whether the rule forbidding lifting a curse for organization members meant someone did not have to be a guild member. Titus initially planned to wait a bit to let the man come to his senses, but then he decided to start discussing the main issue right away. What would Locke Shannon get from the guild? Stressing that buying her would free the girl from guild employment and remove the obstacles to lifting the curse, the leader asked the boy for his opinion, leaving him completely confused and unable to answer. Then the man kept asking how the other man viewed the Adventurers Guild's main purpose. The young man said the guild's main purpose was to help other adventurers make a living, and Titus agreed, but added that the guild's true mission was to bring happiness to adventurers. The leader therefore finds betrayals like Isaac's completely unacceptable. Normally, he would remove the culprit at once or, at best, exile them for life, but for the traitors themselves, this doesn't fundamentally change anything. Admitting it might sound naive, he believes the guys will seize the chance to see themselves in a new light, and finally the heroes will be thanked while he, having helped them through their struggles, only wishes they find true happiness. To him, Shannon's life was full of trials, yet she remained a sweet girl who cared about others. In that way they were similar. Both had endured many difficulties, and their willingness to sacrifice themselves would make them a great team. The leader won't force anyone, but will be glad if the boy supports the girl, and grateful if the elf returns the favor by supporting Luke. The young man never imagined anyone could understand his soul, but it turned out people were watching him closely. The man gave a small smile and glanced at Shannon. When the young man asked what she wanted, she said that as a slave she had no right to decide, but she added that if Locke was not harmed, she would willingly go with him. He promised to care for Shannon and asked how much the purchase would cost. The administrator said the price matched the reward for the task. The man was genuinely surprised by the coincidence. First, the young man said he would remove the curse and drew a magic circle. A terrible black eye appeared right in front of Locke, filling him with unbearable dread. A mysterious creature, summoned by the curse, tried to cast a dark spell on the young hero. The black eye vanished, and the onlookers all turned to admire the young Tamer. The boy exhaled as Lucky beamed with pride at his master's success. He thanked his pet, admitting the victory was only possible because of the pet's support, and the guild leader explained that the founder of Magin's curse had just been lifted. Locke asked if Titus had any information about the curse. Titus answered briefly. Even as leader, he knew little. Only a few rare reports of similar incidents had reached him. Rumors said that long ago the world was ruled by a magician who could summon magic. The young man sheepishly asked to be warned in advance of such facts, so he could be more careful. Shannon thanked the young man warmly and said she was eager to begin working together. It seemed the problems were behind them. Titus concluded that all that remained now was to prevent Isaac's victory and obtain the necessary materials. The heroes started preparing and moved to the mini-garden for further action. An elf asked where they'd ended up. The young man explained it was a tiny garden hidden inside the bracelet. Admiring the piece, the girl said she had no idea such a wonderful interspace existed. Locke blushed with embarrassment. The girl noticed a skybird the boy had recently befriended. Shannon asked him if he knew how rare skybirds are, since only a few can fly that high and not everyone gets to see them. Fenrir was an unusual creature who knew he was unique, and when she called him unusual, he realized he was different from the rest. Sprawled on the floor, the pet groaned that he was hungry. Locke was hungry too and considered asking the orange ants for meat, but remembered he didn't know where to find them. Lucky said the young man knew they had set up a dwelling in the dungeon beneath the hut's floor. The owner was stunned. Staring at the huge hole, the boy couldn't understand how they had managed to make it. Orange ants crawled out and greeted Daddy warmly, glad he had returned. The girl wondered why the orange insects looked human and whether they were actually ants. Lucky said the boy liked things like that. The young man began to defend himself, saying that when the larvae hatched. The elf hurried to calm him, promising to keep any secrets, and the pet gave a small smile. The young man admitted it was a huge misunderstanding, and the girl, pleased by how well they had communicated, asked him to tell her the details of the story. The boy asked if the others understood what they were talking about, but Shannon just spread her hands to show she hadn't understood. Still, she realized the orange ant spoke almost like a human. The young man wondered whether she truly saw the insects as real people. One of them said she had learned to speak only because she had learned to communicate with humans. Claiming to be the family leader, the insect said it was different from the others because it had special powers that let it negotiate with other species and give orders. This gift is called interspecies language. If the girl reproduces what she heard, it will show whether she can use the gift. By imitating the voice's sound, she was able to use it. Lucky asked in disbelief whether the girl understood him. Her confirmation left the young man unable to believe his ears. Shannon thanked Aunt Hardly. Locke had no idea how many hidden abilities the world held. He had once thought only this girl could speak, but she turned out to be gifted. To show respect, the young man called the ant Patra. Flattered by the lovely name, the insect suggested that the rest of her comrades give her names. Locke looked around the assembled group and saw they all looked almost identical. Patra said there were differences. The names the young man had suggested, Orange A, Orange B, Orange C, Orange D, Orange E, had caused discontent. Surprisingly, the insects liked their new names. The ants jumped with wild joy and delight. Watching the little creatures, the young man was amazed by how many individual traits they showed. Knowing he could only pick fitting names after getting to know each one better, he turned to Patra to ask about the ants' dungeon. Patra guided a tour through the dungeon's rooms. This is the cold storage for food, including meat. Another room is for drying wool, and the demonic crystals found during construction are here. Locke gasped with admiration at the scale of the work done so quickly. The friends rejoiced at the master's praise. Hearing that food supplies were available, they decided to prepare dinner. At the market, after the young man realized they had no dishes, Shannon asked if he planned to start cooking. Short on time, he decided to fry a chicken. Shannon repeated the phrase carefully. Locke agreed, noting the dish was very simple. Season the meat, then fry it. Chicken pairs well with cabbage. The elf pictured the future culinary masterpiece. The buyer politely asked the merchant if he had any cabbage. A man said fresh cabbage was temporarily unavailable and would not be back soon. The young man sadly said he wanted a taste of chicken with his favorite cabbage. A stern voice then interrupted, reminding him that the hero should not allow himself any entertainment now. Isaac, Amy, and Cara appeared right in front of them. Market, the heroes stand among the merchant stalls. One asks the other if he is sure he can afford to have fun. The tall adventurer says boldly that if the boy kneels before him now, the adventurer will gladly return the boy to the party, but not otherwise. The boy turns to him. A girl suddenly steps between them, clearly aggressive. She asks the tall swordsman what's wrong, but he does not know who she is or where she came from. A man asks Shannon, the girl's name, to leave the bullies alone, then calls the swordsman Isaac, says nothing binds them now, and tells him to leave. Smiling, he agrees with the man. Suddenly it's a trap, and he swings his fist, striking the girl in front of him. The young man pulls his hand away from his girlfriend's face. The surprise shocks Isaac. When the boy asks the bully what he is doing, the bully just grinds his teeth in anger. He says he didn't fully understand the guild's tactics, but thought they should have paired the boy with a strong adventurer, and wonders if the girl is really an E rank. He summons a piece of trash and says a hero could not use her properly. Isaac grins evilly. Tension eases, then the girl speaks up and tells Isaac to take back his words. She screams that Locke is a person, not an object, and a crazy bully for using words like that. Surprised by those words, the hero watches Isaac scold the girl again, saying that weak dogs bark too much. Again, his girlfriend asks Locke, the hero, whether this girl is really his new partner. He says her name is Shannon, an E-rank elf adventurer, and the sorceress studies the stranger closely. They look at one another. Pretending not to want to offend Shannon, the heroine notices Shannon's clothes are no good and feels excited. Turning to Shannon, the sorceress says if she plans to go to a party with Locke, she should pay closer attention to what she wears. The man says it's none of Cara's business. Even though the sorceress dresses stylishly, it doesn't affect her powers. The remark makes Cara pout. Suddenly she, acting on a whim, shouts that she cannot believe the man's choice, and he replies that it is not his choice, but she insists that's not true. Amy, another friend of the hero, introduces herself and apologizes for her comrade's rude behavior toward Shannon. She speaks to Locke as well. The girl bows and says she is not sure an apology can make up for this, but asks forgiveness for everything her comrades have done, explaining she has thought about it a lot. Convinced Locke would stop adventuring, she still wanted one last contest with him to test his strength before deciding what to do next. The man says he understood the woman. Isaac yells at Amy to hurry. Amy follows him and wishes the boys luck. Locke calmly tells her to be sure to use it. After the adventurers leave, Shannon tells Locke they should do something too, but he cuts her off and says everything is fine. He knows they can't afford to lose now. Surprised by the hero's attentiveness, she sees the full moon rising and Locke suggests they return. Steam billows up as a loud sneeze sounds. A huge dog-like beast sits in the middle of a small area with its muzzle covered by something. Locke turns to him and tells Lucky, the beast's name, not to play with the cornmeal. That explains the clouds of steam, and he doesn't play with it. The beast sneezes once more. Suddenly everyone stares at one person, eyes wide. The girl snorts. Laughter breaks out as the man announces that everything is ready. Beautiful fried chicken cooked by Locke rests on the platter. Guests thank the young man for the treat. Lucky sniffs the pile of treats with satisfaction. They all begin eating and savor each bite. Everyone is raving about how delicious the food is, but Locke curbs their enthusiasm by asking them, including Shannon, to eat more slowly. Once again, she describes in vivid detail how delicious it is. Everyone is happy, and their joy seems endless. Locke now tells the boys what they will do this time. They must reach the Dungeon of Fresh Greenery. The journey there takes 2 days by cart. Completing the order will take weeks. That area is full of difficult terrain like forests and swamps, but if they travel in a straight line, they can reach it in under half a day. From the weight of Isaac's group's luggage and the cart's direction, they will take the usual route, so there's no reason they should lose unless something happens to them in the forest. Even if the opponents take the shortest route, their trip won't go smoothly with all that luggage. All of them have eaten their fill. Then Locke's team moves out. They always ride Lucky while he runs through the forest. The girl says she also had to be transported, but the animal is completely fine. As Fenrir predicted, the monsters do not attack but watch from behind the bushes, sadly following them with their eyes. Riding on the beast's back, they suddenly notice something. A crying sound makes them think someone is being attacked by a monster. A man asks Lucky to back up a little, and Lucky agrees. Surprised, the boys see a winged demon sitting in the middle of the clearing. The demon weeps. A stone gargoyle statue. One of the statue's eyes suddenly opens, and the demon giggles. Waving his arms, he shouts loudly. Magic blades fly toward the characters. The characters are surprised again. The girl concludes it's wind magic. The boy confirms it, and the beast laughs, saying no one would dare challenge him with wind magic. When he opens his mouth, a magic circle appears in front of him, and a glowing ball forms. A man praises Lucky, calling him a very strong beast. The energy ball keeps growing, surprising the heroes. As the ball grows a bit more, Locke gets worried and asks the dog to stop. That way leads to the royal capital, so if he keeps going he will not escape punishment, but something is wrong. When the dog says he can't stop it, the man is terrified, and with no time to think he jumps up from his seat and runs to intercept the shot. With his back to the demon, he extends both hands and reads a runic spell. A prismatic object and a magic circle materialize before him. Even if he cannot undo the spell, he figures he can at least disperse its energy. The beast fires the gun, and a wave of energy sweeps toward the man, making him uncomfortable. A beam of light splits into two and surrounds the boy and his demon. Locke grunts the shot's power is too much. He keeps holding. Using the last of his strength, he turns to a strong woman and asks her to endure. Because of his efforts, the spell carves through 2 major roads on either side of the capital. Silence falls, smoke drifts up toward the moon. A lone man stands in the wasteland. Breathing heavily, the boy managed to prevent a disaster. A huge beast emerges from the thinning smoke, covering its eyes with its paws as a girl stands beside it. The beast shudders slightly. Peeking through his fingers at the guy, he laughs. The girl asks Locke if he's okay, and he really is. When he asks back, the girl and Lucky are okay too. He says everything is fine. The girl notices Locke's hands are injured. Locke notices them too. The healing potion will fix that wound, so the boy drinks from the bottle and his wounds heal. Shannon is delighted with the potion's effect, and the man who made it thanks her. The dog whimpers that he messed up again, looks at Lucky, and turns to him. He thinks about the dog. The boy realizes Lucky was only trying to help and appreciates the gesture. Lucky is moved to tears. Locke says the beast's magic falls into the disaster category, so they will now learn to control their powers and fight together. The beast touched more and more. The beast promises he will do his best and train. The man turns to face the demon, afraid. He asks the gargoyle what she is doing here, and she covers her face with both hands in horror. The demon covers his face with his elbows, shouting that the man is a monster, and begins to cry. Locke says a gargoyle would not speak like that, and it is strange that he cries in such a place. The youth asks what the reason is. The gargoyle says he is sad after being kicked out of the demon lord's army and now sits here. Locke is surprised to learn that monsters can be fired too. The gargoyle says he believes he was made from scraps of material. Because their magic is weak, he has stayed in the castle and spent the last 100 years cleaning. When the army changed leaders recently, the new commanders told the gargoyle they did not need a monster that only claimed. Fired from his job, the demon wandered the forest in confusion until he hobbled to a nearby village, where the villagers suddenly attacked him and he ran away. Locke notes that many people do not react well to monsters and demons. Best agrees, but he had always been cleaning and had never seen people before. Feeling inferior and knowing people hate the demon filled his heart with sadness, and Shannon looks at the monster with pity. The demon wonders what his life was for after all this, then moans and sobs until Locke interrupts with a cry. He had heard gargoyles were the demon lord's elite soldiers and needed a great deal of magic to create, so it was hard to imagine they would make one from leftover material. The young man asks the monster what it will do next. The monster doesn't know and even asks the young man what it should do. The demon cries without stopping. Locke looks at it, swears, asks the demon to come with them, and feels a bit encouraged. Doubting himself, he asks again whether it's really possible, calling himself a stupid gargoyle obsessed with cleanliness, and the hero replies that strength doesn't matter because the gargoyle has been cleaning for 100 years, so it's no wonder the gargoyle is weak. Grateful, the demon thanks the boy, says thank you very much, and asks to be allowed to join the group. The sealed gargoyle wants to be Locke's friend. That's how he sees it, and he notices the idea that the gargoyle is sealed came to him on its own. The young man asks what this means and whether it is some kind of sealed power or something like that, saying he doesn't understand and that he was only created by the previous master. Locke hums in understanding, asks permission to greet Gargoyle Kun again, and Kun replies that it would be a great honor. When Locke grays, a voice tells him the sealed gargoyle has become a sacred beast and his friend. The transformation happens. Now he can choose one of the options. This expands the hut. He picks an option and the expansion is complete. A man says there is a village nearby because the demon just told him. They move on and find a field planted with cabbage, which grows here in great abundance and is already quite ripe. Locke wonders how a cabbage patch could be in the middle of nowhere. Then he notices the dog has gone to sleep and suggests they can't be there. Shannon agrees. Morning finally arrives over the forest. They keep walking. The man says the Gorulia already told him about this place they have just arrived at. They stand right in front of the village, which is enclosed by a square wall, and a sign reads Chowchin Village. A man in a vest sits at the village entrance, leaning against a pole and snoring loudly, while a boy and a girl observe the sleeping stranger who does not notice them. Locke tries to speak to the gatekeeper, but the man is asleep. Shannon hesitates, then taps the sleeping man's shoulder and greets the peasant. The peasant wakes up and asks what is going on. She politely asks him to wake up. Opening his eyes, he says the angel himself has descended from heaven, and that it may be his time to go to heaven, but if this girl wants him, he does not mind and even tries to kiss Shannon. A dog steps on the gatekeeper, stopping the unwanted kiss. The man groans and finds himself pinned to the ground. Anger flares and he demands who has come and whether they are bandits, but Locke reassures him that they are just adventurers heading to the caves who heard about the village. The peasant responds at once, saying that since the boys are adventurers, they should go to the headman now because the village needs them. Locke asks again, still unsure he understood everything correctly. Many people here are very thin, which strikes him as odd because this area has never had hunger, and then someone greets him. This is the village elder Onigami, an old man leaning on his walking stick and smiling at the boy. The man says it's nice to meet the old man. He introduces his companions Shannon and the sacred beast Bully Lucky. The elder says this time the gatekeeper's sleep was productive. With his experience, he says sleep is no obstacle to his duties. He even removed the stone gargoyle. The headman says it is very touching, but the gatekeeper says his eyesight is failing, asks again what he was just told, calls the headman a stupid old man, and they begin to argue. Locke steps in and asks what the elder wanted to discuss. The elder apologizes for getting carried away, clears his throat, and prepares to tell the boy what the matter is. About a year ago, in the green garden swamp where the goblins had lived, the fields and village were already struggling, and the goblins raided and took the little food that remained. A group of young men tried to kill the attackers to protect the village, but they came back wounded. 3 of the young men are sitting there with their wounds bandaged. The elder asks the heroes for help, and it proves essential. The boy asks again whether they really are goblins. Goblins are more intelligent than other monsters, and if their numbers grow, they will be dangerous. The village asked both the guild and the government for help, but no one would do the job without a reward. Locke understands the situation. Helping them would leave him, as an adventurer, unpaid and unable to feed himself. Also, even if they save them now, they might ask for help again later, and the peasants should be more self-reliant. The boy turns to the elder. He asks to inspect the area's map to pinpoint where the goblins are. They hand him the map and point out everything. He says everything is clear now. A real way exists to deal with the goblins. The peasants can hardly believe it and ask again. Nearby cabbage beds will help the peasants survive. The old man thinks about the heroes, but Locke says if they do nothing, everything will repeat at night. He can help develop the village to prevent this, but his kindness discourages the villagers. When the village starts earning money, he plans to ask the villagers for 20% of the proceeds so they can have a roof over their heads. Refusing to take sole responsibility for 20%, the elder frustrates the hero. Locke tells the peasants the boys are busy with another matter, and if all the villagers help, he will take only 10%. It's 10% of the profit, meaning sales minus each person's costs and labor, and even without the residents' help, the guys can still provide food and damage the enemies. Everyone is talking. The village's main problem is its location. It hinders transport to and from the rest of the state. The fields are poorly maintained, and the village lacks any specialty products or essential supplies. Helping them for free would do no good. The villagers need to be determined. The elder says he wants to consult the other villagers and asks for more time. When Shannon asks what will happen next, the hero replies that the villagers will see much bigger profits and are unlikely to refuse. In any case, the boy will go into the garden to make some preparations and asks the girl to tell him if the headman calls. She agrees. At last, the old man steps in and apologizes for the wait. In the end, people were divided. He's sure that if left alone, they won't be able to improve anything. He asks whether it is normal for the compensation to be used for unexpected expenses. Locke agrees, and if they cooperate with him, they can eventually deal with the goblins and secure the village's food supply, so the residents will no longer be in danger. In that case, the villagers think this is the best deal possible, but one resident does not trust the hero. He thinks it's a bad idea, and the headman interrupts the young man. He insists he would have handled the goblins easily, if not for the wound. This man is one of those who suffered from the goblins earlier. Locke reaches into his coat and pulls out a bottle. He gives the villager his unique healing potion. He says he doesn't care and won't drink it. The hero points out that if it's not necessary, it's not, which proves his good intentions, and he will even treat his companion first. Eager to try this special magic potion, she lifts the bottle to her lips and takes a sip. It's very tasty, she says loudly, admiring the flavor. Healing potions seemed unpleasant to her, but the one she just tried is surprisingly soothing and easy to drink, leaving her feeling light all over. Locke wants to drink it too, and pours the bottle straight into his mouth, while Lucky's eyes widen with pleasure. He loudly praises the taste of the potion the man brewed. He can't name it, but it's very calming, refreshing, satisfying, pleasing, delightful, healing, helpful, relieving, and strengthening, and he doesn't know why. The man offers the bottle to the young man too. The young man tries it skeptically and says he will not be fooled. It's really tasty. He loudly praises the potion he just tried, vividly describing its unusual flavor that he liked for some reason. He truly enjoys the flavor. Now he realizes he no longer needs the crutch. The pain is gone, a miracle, nothing else, he thinks. Coda says they are busy with another request right now, but if they help the guys, they will also share other healing potions with the residents. The young man says they will gladly accept the command if the wounded are all healed now. Warren, the headman's assistant, introduces himself, apologizes for doubting the heroes, and says he will gladly cooperate from now on. The headman asks if anyone objects, and no one speaks up. Everyone finally agreed. 6 days remain until the deadline for the main team request. The villagers are all surprised when they taste the food he prepared. Everyone loves the taste. Cabbage soup surprises the villagers because they've never eaten cabbage, so they find it very tasty, and the hero says cabbage is tasty on its own. While making the soup, among other things, the hero added a healing potion, and those who felt ill began to recover. Approaching Shannon, the boy asks if she can help him with anything and tells her to take Orange, Ants, A, and B, and protect them and the villagers when they go to collect materials. She asks whether he truly trusts her with such an important task, and he assures her he does, saying everything will be fine and that she can defeat any monster roaming the area. Besides, Aunt A and Aunt B can take care of themselves. That's the boy's plan. The girl says she'll do her best and that she finally understands. He and his team will build a road straight to Kronto, allowing travelers to come and go and solving the delivery problems at once. He waves his hand and fills everything around him with magical energy. People feel lighter and appreciate it. A young man cast a strengthening spell on them to make moving easier, but it didn't last long. Everyone is delighted and talks about it at length. He tells them not to overdo it to avoid breaking bones, but they stay endlessly gleeful, and Shannon admires how he casts strengthening magic on so many people. He tells her that with training she can do it herself, and next time he'll teach her, so she admires him again and thanks the hero. He is now urging everyone to begin building the road. In fact, they build the whole road together. Some ants are laying blocks while the rest work on other tasks. They've done enough for today, and the hero suggests stopping there. Much has already been done. They've almost finished laying the stone and clearing the road. At this pace, it should be ready by tomorrow. Lucky's magic makes the road possible. After that, the boy will try to trade the village's goods. His familiars are amazing, far beyond anything he could imagine. Night settles over the Garden of Monsters, where the action unfolds. The hero studies the map. A girl brings him a cup of tea. She asks if the master is still asleep. He's planning for tomorrow, but first she needs sleep after working harder than everyone else. He asks her not to call the young man master because it sounds wrong, and he does not consider the chewing gum his servant. The young man's kindness amazes her. Shannon is very happy she met Locke. Shannon says meeting him has made her incredibly happy. Thinking of her, he says he's glad their paths crossed. Outside, it grows even darker. At last, he has a plan and tells her right away that they will ask the villagers to pick cabbage and that he will sell some of the produce in the capital. There's a shortage of cabbage there, and he's sure it will all sell out. Also remember the guild's request. He is confident victory will be theirs, but the exact way they win is equally important. As for Titus, he might be afraid, but the hero has to stop explaining because the girl is already asleep. In her dream, she tells Locke he is amazing. Locke looks at her with wide, round eyes and a gentle expression. He then waves his hand and cleanses her head. He thanks the girl a lot. The night still looms over the hut. The ants and the demon are both asleep. The bird that landed on the roof of the house is also asleep. Shannon sleeps in her bed. The hero stays awake, goes outside, hears someone else awake, and says the man has gone somewhere. A dog sits in front of him. It is awake. A man asks Lucky if he's asleep, but Lucky ignores the question since the answer is obvious. The man then asks what the others are catching today. They are catching rainbow dragonflies, and something needs to be done about the goblins. While Lucky stays near the village, the monsters will not dare to attack, and if the boys are left alone, some adventurers will defeat the monsters anyway. Surprised by the reasoning, the dog still agrees. He suggests they leave now, and the young man agrees they should. Then they all go into the forest to catch dragonflies. They gaze at each other like lovers. Morning arrives as someone hums while preparing food in a young man's house. Woken by the bright light, he sits up in bed. Hears a song with cooking sounds, and someone thinks it's Shannon. Her getting up early to make breakfast for everyone makes him happy. He thanks her out loud and asks if she needs help. It turns out it's not Shannon, but a demon in an apron who says everything is almost ready, and you just need to wait a couple of minutes. The man shouts that it's not a girl and apologizes for the mistake. The surprised gargoyle asks what happened and if he had a nightmare. Everything is fine, but he asks if he can help, and it turns out the demon often prepared food for whole armies of monsters and can do much more. A man says everything is fine, then Shannon comes in and wishes the hero a good morning. She regrets daring to fall asleep last night. He tells her not to worry about it and asks whether the character will really train with a wooden sword. She insists she did want to make breakfast, but Gargoyle told her to leave it to him. Locke accepted it that way, grateful but uneasy when he saw the demon, and the girl wanted to ask whether the hero himself was tired. That night he went to catch dragonflies and was amazed by her knowledge because he only ever caught dragonflies with Lucky, sure the girl was sleeping soundly and should not be disturbed. She screams that it's not the point, insisting she wants to be useful to Locke, and he suggests they all go catch dragonflies together next time. She makes him promise and he does. Breakfast is ready, the gargoyle loudly announces it, and the boy and girl agree. In the second half of day 2, sell the cabbage at the rune and deliver the dragonfly wings to the guild. The healed village warrior, who once mistrusted the hero, will handle it. Now that the road was completely cleared today, the boy believes he can finally sell some goods. He'll even teach the children how to catch dragonflies in large numbers. Plowing the land and planting cabbage will solve the food problems. As night falls, they have finally finished everything that needed to be done. Everyone is celebrating. People thank Locke for his actions. The headman thanks Locke again. Not once did he think the road would be finished so quickly. He says the tide feels like a small tax to him. That's fine, they can send him funds through the guild. Before dawn, they split up and stole the egg and the stone from the green frogs. They didn't encounter any wyverns, so they could worry about them the next day. Now he feels something simple. He remembers the place where a cart rolled. They believe their rivals will get to the destination sooner than expected, which will cause problems for everyone. The boy stretches because it's morning. Urging everyone, he asks them to give their best today with all their might. A small bird lands on his shoulder. The hero asks where the tiny birds in the garden came from and is surprised when told he is wrong. This is the very same heavenly bird that was there the day before. He says the skybird was slightly larger, but when they sorted the materials from the monsters, they found a nut-shaped object. When the sky bird inexplicably ate the object, it shrank to the size of a crumb, and the man is amazed by the miracle and wants to know how to restore the bird to its original size. The bird makes random noises by itself. It's true there's nothing to be done now, and in time she will grow up. The main thing is that nothing threatens her life. The bird is in shock. Suddenly the man realizes he smells something foul, asks what stench he just noticed, and discovers it's a dog. Locke tells Lucky exactly what stinks. Locke asks again whether the hero is mistaken. The beast says he cannot possibly stink. Locke asks when the dog last washed itself. He replies that it could have washed itself yesterday while lost in thought. Washing wasn't possible then because Locke had been by the beast all day and never saw him pick up soap or a towel, and he says he washed himself the day before yesterday. His eyes lock with the man's and the beast freezes. He says he's perfectly fine without a bath because he licks himself clean from head to toe. Then Locke says there's nothing to be done about it. He has already thought of everything and asks everyone present to start catching and washing the animal. Everyone thinks it will be fun and joins in happily, even though Lucky is a very strong creature. Curious too, the latter replies and jokes about the lip-rolling spell the boys should remember to use if they think they can catch him. The man then works his own magic, casting a magical aura over most of those present, including Shannon, the gargoyle, and the ants. He says he's cast support magic on everyone except Lucky. It won't last long, but the guy's strength and speed will get a boost. Everyone thanks the guy in front of the dog. Laughing, Lucky says they'd be fools to think any support magic could make up for the gap between him and the other beasts. The first duel is between the legendary Fenrir Lucky and Patra, queen of the orange ants. Patra loudly announces she is starting. Calling out that the fight has begun, she rushes toward the beast, arms waving. He mutters that sweet, naive Patra can't handle the wolf on her own, and she throws a wad of sticky threads from a distance to catch the beast. Dodging, he says triumphantly that he already said he can't be caught by a single attack, and looks at the familiar with obvious arrogance. Lifting her hands, she lets out a triumphant cry and declares it's all over, leaving the beast confused. They come from all sides and attack the dogs. Shouting that it's an ambush, he calls out while smaller ones spit out bundles of thread that tie the wolf up and immobilize him. Helpless, he collapses to the ground in front of the ants. He even cries loudly when he falls to the ground. The bonds are unexpectedly strong. Patrick tells the master they managed it together. He calls her magnificent after she tricked the wolf into lowering its guard by pretending to attack alone. She laughs and the boy tells Lucky to be a good boy now. He surprises many by getting back up and breaking his bonds with his own strength. Waving the pieces of thread and holding them in his teeth, he captivates the ants, leaving them greatly amazed. He says they managed to immobilize the beast, but they lack the magic to keep it restrained. The ants weep inconsolably because Lucky is strong. The gargoyle then says that everything is clear to her now, drawing everyone's attention. The demon says he'll be the next to challenge the dog, and the duel between the proud sacred, beast Lucky, and the gargoyle begins. Fenrir says the gargoyle has no real chance to win, and the gargoyle replies that he is always underestimated and will show his best side. He uses the fact that, although the demon is weak, he has knowledge gathered over 100 years, and Locke's support magic helps him, and the dog's underestimation works to his advantage. The demon is soundly defeated by the dog. The dog looks around and asks who will fight him now. Shannon steps forward and says she's ready to fight. The duel begins between Fenrir, not the dog called Lucky, and the elf blessed by his master Shannon. The beast asks the girl to show what she can do. Determined, she vows to give it her all and draws her sword from its sheath. Finally, the girl charges the beast and swings her sword, but it dodges. He insists that at this speed she can't touch him at all, but she just snorts. She strikes him repeatedly with her blade and asks what he will say now. The beast jumps around, recognizing the elf is tougher than she looks and has grown stronger overall, but a casual attack won't hurt her, and the elf understands this. It's getting harder and harder for the beast to dodge. Once again, she catches the dog off guard. She pinned him against a rock. It's unclear to him when she managed to do it. The elf levels the blade at him. She orders Lucky to obey and go wash himself, but the beast slips aside and disappears from view. He presses his tail to her neck, the tip so sharp that if she moves, she will surely lose her head and more. The girl's sighs conceded defeat. She relents. The dog praises the girl, saying she moves well and clearly trains hard every day for a reason. She thanks the beast, but now it is time for another fight. Now it's time for the main course, a duel between Fenrir, who only wanted to play and is called Lucky, and Locke, a man who wants Lucky to take a bath. Now the warm-up is over. The dog asks the young man to attack and does not hold back its strength. A man pulls out two sharp knives and crosses them in front of him, and for some reason the dog looks at him. The beast stops and asks what that sweet scent was that he just smelled. A small bird sits on top of his head. A celestial bird has turned into a chick holding a flower in its teeth, and the beast says he does not understand it while his strength leaves him. He collapses to the ground and sinks into a deep sleep. The boy is surprised the bird decided to bring a sleep-inducing flower. It turns out the chick one. Now the young man suggests that everyone wash together for luck, and everyone agrees. Near the New Leaf dungeon, Isaac sits in a cart with his comrades and grows nervous, asking the others why the road hasn't ended yet. A sorceress among the girls asks him to be quieter. The other stays silent, her look condemning as she watches the raging Isaac. He says he'll make that bastard regret betraying Isaac's party, and by that he means Locke, the hero. Amy replies that they were the first to betray him, but he cuts her off, making the girl cover her mouth because the young man does not want to hear this at all. Isaac fought on the front lines and earned S rank, but that damn porter, Locke, no one cares about him anyway, and even after all that, things still don't go his way. His party was told that without Locke, they were at C rank level, and Isaac would never accept that under any circumstances. The hero will win no matter what and prove everything to everyone, while the girls watch his hysteria with little sympathy, and one even chuckles. She wants to say up front that she will not collect orango eggs, and unfortunately there are not many rainbow dragonflies. Isaac already knows both, but this time they don't need to gather everything for their request. The main target is still the wyverns, so everything should be fine, or so they think. The girl asks Isaac what she has wanted to know for a long time, why he is so arrogant, and Isaac replies that he does not want to hear such things from a girl. She explains that Isaac approves requests without checking details and adds people to the party without discussion, so this time the girls have no choice but to help him. He replies that they can do as they wish, even if they plan to leave the group after this matter. Let them follow his orders this time while the request is being fulfilled. The cab driver says they've finally arrived, and Isaac tells him to keep the change. He says the money given out isn't enough because he gave the men the shortest ride to the dungeon. If he doesn't pay, the cab driver's time will be wasted. The man becomes furious, as always. He gives him a lot more money to keep him from getting upset, then leaves, and Isaac curses wildly as usual. He says everyone is only trying to make him look like a fool, but that doesn't matter now because he is looking straight ahead. They are across from the New Leaf dungeon and ready to go straight inside. 4 days remain until the request is due. The boys head inside. Elsewhere, the guys are washing the dog. In Dungeon New Leaf, the character's goal is to reach the wyverns deep in the dungeon, where they will search for monsters. As the three advance between the dungeon's rock walls, a sound draws the attention of the group's leader. Dinosaurs are swarming the hill. Isaac says they should grab the rest on the way back, but for now they need to get the wyverns. The leader worries that no one is responding to him, and in fact no one is. Strangely, there are no rainbow dragonflies or green frogs anywhere. Orango is available but can't find their eggs, so under these conditions, it is unclear whether the heroes can gather everything needed to fulfill the requests, and when he asks, no one answers. Maybe he thinks the guild is trying to set them up and doesn't even have the correct information. If so, the guild's guild is obvious. On their return, they will immediately remind the guild of all these humiliations. At that moment, someone moves behind the bush and makes an unpleasant sound. A goblin leaps out of the bushes and hits the man. Swiftly, he draws his sword and wounds the goblin. He says the guild failed to warn anyone about the goblins, the organization's staff acted irresponsibly, and he is very angry about it. The man points out a tall goblin knight among the monsters who stands out and leads the little freaks. Isaac could tell that even high-level goblins were in the area, and he believed this place had become their lair. Lunging at the goblin knight, he strikes with his sword, but the knight jumps aside and avoids the blow. Isaac yells at everyone to get away, as if that will help, and as if the goblins will actually get away. The goblin leader, a knight, charges the young man and strikes from above, forcing him to turn his whole body to block the monster's blade with his sword. While blocking, he remembers a guild member saying the boys were under divine protection with Locke, but without him, they were only rank C. Shouting, he says it's not true. He refuses to accept it, convinced he can't lose to this goldfinch, as the goblin pins him to the ground with its strength and weight. A fiery spear pierces the monster and it screams. The man screams too. The monster lies smoking on the ground, impaled by a spear. Amy asks if Isaac is all right. He thinks he would have been fine on his own, but the second girl says he looks like the battle was tough, and that remark makes him angry. Now the group is surrounded by evil goblins. Isaac says to leave the fighting for later and focus on the goblins for now, since there are already so many of them, and the man is swearing terribly as usual. The battle ends, goblins lie scattered, and the fighters breathe heavily after a brutal fight. They ask each other if it's really over, and in one sense it is, but not quite. They finally conclude the goblin knight led the monsters, and now everything should be all right. The girl mage begins to cast a spell. Isaac turns and walks on with determination, telling the boys to follow since they still have to deal with the wyverns before returning to the guild, and the girls reluctantly agree. Wyvern screams come repeatedly from the giant rock mountain at the center of the area. Hidden behind the bushes, the heroes watch the animals. There are many of them. They crawl and swarm in various ways. Isaac tells Amy he'll attack and distract them while she uses magic to pierce their wings, and when the monsters strike, he'll finish them off. They will target the wyverns separated from the group, and the girl understands Isaac and why this needs to be done. The swordsman charges both wyverns with his sword ready, shouting that he has finally, despite everything, gone. The wyverns screamed at him with harsh, unpleasant noises. He swings his sword at them, but they quickly use the wings they have and fly up to dodge the blow. Amy jumps in immediately and fires flaming arrows left and right at the flying wyverns. Arrows strike the failed dragons, and they fall to the ground engulfed in tongues of flame, smiling as they break into pieces. The man also strikes them with his sword, cutting them into pieces. Good, the wyverns are gone, so he should move on to the next stage of the plan. Suddenly, a second wyvern attacked the girls, filling the air with harsh, unsettling screams. The man didn't notice it rising. It was an unexpected attack. The girls must run to save themselves, dodging strikes from the heavy tail. They run away from the wyvern. Isaac catches up and asks if they're okay. One of the girls is too angry at Isaac and makes it obvious. She sighs. Angry, she yells at the boy because he was supposed to be protecting his mages and compares him to Locke. Sure, a professional like Locke would have protected them both, which makes the boy furious as always. He shouts that Locke has nothing to do with them, that Isaac did not know there was another wyvern, and that even with an escort it should be able to defend itself, while she is in shock. Screaming that this is complete nonsense, she tells Amy they must leave immediately because they'll die if they stay with this idiot Isaac, and she does not resist. The sorcerer tells her she can no longer be near the young man, scolds her, but still asks them both to stay, remaining as confused and furious as always. Watching the girls leave, he stands with eyes wide and yells at Cara, the sorceress, to wait, but she won't, and he becomes furious as usual. Watching his former comrades move to Locke's side because they'll likely be better off and have abandoned him, he remembers Locke's face and feels the same old fury. Once again, the boy remembers a grandfather who told Isaac that Locke was incredible, but Isaac was not, and that the boy should learn from Locke, which does not motivate him. He remembers crying back then and says everyone keeps talking about the Locke, which is just annoying. Wyverns now surround him, ready to cause all kinds of mischief. Seeing the monster's teeth closing in, the boy decides he will make everyone fail the request. He plants his sword in the ground and shouts he will not let Locke win under any circumstances. The girls look at one another and say what they see is clearly terrible and should not be happening, but it is. The caster unleashes a spell called Great Cross, and wyverns scatter as a powerful stream of magical energy shoots outward in multiple directions. They disappear into the flame, and the girl sits behind a stone, hiding from the magical energy. He glances at his sword, which glows and lights his malicious face. Energy fills the entire cell as it rises upward. Lock the villagers inside, spot a huge cross rising in the distance, and hear a sound. Shannon says it was definitely Isaac and company, and he confirms it could only have been them. The boy asks Shannon to stay with him. Shannon agrees. Everyone else in the village keeps working except Shannon. Locke counts on Lucky and immediately understands the situation. At last, the friends reach the rock, the dungeon of fresh foliage. Thick smoke billows from the dungeon entrance, and three figures step out coughing loudly as one of them comments on how much smoke there is. Isaac, who appeared from the smoke with his comrades, feels unwell, and Amy gently supports him under the elbow. The swordsman tells Locke to bite back since both the wyverns and the materials turned to dust from Isaac's carelessness. He says the boys will no longer be able to fulfill the request, and in locked comments he said he did not think his former comrades would stoop to such villainy. Shannon snaps at the boy that if this is true, they must return to the kingdom's capital, buy the materials, and deliver them to the guild. It's unfair, but they can't lose. She has already seen the items for sale. Secure the objects. They may contain wyverns and need further inspection. Shannon tries to object but backs down. The swordsman gestures over his shoulder to Locke, signaling that Locke's people may search as long as they like, and Isaac will return to wait for the next meeting while Locke watches him. The three of them, with Lucky, enter the dungeon and see a terrible smoking scene. They study the body and doubt that it is really a goblin knight. Locke says the knight must have led the goblins, so the village is safe now. Lucky says that's how it is. Seen from above, the area looks like scorched earth, even though the foliage is oddly untouched. All the monsters have turned to dust. Isaac has powerful magic, so the mage path suits him. The materials are spoiled and cannot be delivered. Locke says there's nothing to be done and suggests going back, but Lucky cries with joy after finding something. There are wyvern eggs right behind the rocks. Since they were behind rocks, the eggs were not damaged in the end. The dog asks whether the eggs taste good. Locke is not sure, but they need to deliver these eggs to the guild sometime. Later, the villagers are relieved and grateful that the boys defeated the goblins, and Shannon asks if they should also deal with the goblins in the swamp. It turns out the swamp is in the same place as the dungeon. The map is outdated and the name has changed, so they are the same goblins. While waiting for Isaac and his group to deliver some materials to the guild, the boys spent the day helping develop the village and planting and tending the cabbage. At last, the day to leave had arrived. A fortress was also built to protect the village. The queen ant built a gate and a stone wall around the village to protect everyone from monster attacks and keep everything safe. All the residents thank the heroes. From now on, the villagers will follow the heroes' guidance and continue developing the village. Again, they thank everyone profusely and call the cabbage a wonderful invention. They invite him to return. The hero feels very happy. Next, we must deal with Isaac and his comrades. All of them said goodbye to the residents and headed to Kronto's capital for financial accounting. The action unfolds in the capital of the Kingdom of Kronto. The hero walks down the street, scanning the area. Whatever he's after has to be nearby. They call him from one of the stalls. A man from the village stands there who was cured by lack some time ago. The hero asks the man how sales are going, and the man says the cabbage is selling fast, especially thanks to the rotating dishes and popular samples. Adventurers quickly bought up a special item offered at a low price. Thanks to them, the man earned a lot and gave a share to Lack, but Lack refused and asked to buy a demonic cow with the rest to develop the village. The young man says he owes everything to Laku, his friends, and the other villagers, and thanks Laku on behalf of himself and of them while the boy smiles. The preparation is finally complete. Now the only thing left is to visit the guild. Heading there resolutely, the hero frowns and keeps his gaze straight ahead. He steps through the wide-open gates of the Adventurers Guild. The secretary and Isaac are already there, waiting with two girls. Angrily, he says that Locke is late and greets the boy informally. Both look at each other. The requested materials lay on the table, and Luck and Shannon studied them in silence because Isaac had no way to get them in the dungeon. Grinning triumphantly, he says he thought Locke ran away because he didn't have all the necessary materials, but the young man replies calmly that he would never do that. Isaac smiles again and asks whether the man really came to the guild empty-handed just to play, and Locke says it does not matter because the materials are provided. Isaac says the boy is trying to act tough. The secretary starts to check. The check is underway, and the guys are looking at one another. The bully says angrily that Locke should already be on his knees, begging his opponent for forgiveness with everything he has. The hero says he doesn't want to upset Isaac, but he won't be the one to apologize. Isaac asks again what's wrong, and it's actually very simple. The secretary announces Mr. Locke as the winner of the competition. Isaac is stunned and does not understand what it all means, but Locke has already delivered 30 scales, 10 claws, 60 wings, 9 wyver eggs, and 40 stones. Isaac can't understand how this is possible. Locke arrived at the dungeon after them, so he couldn't have taken anything because the young man destroyed everything there with his own hands. The swordsman grabs the boy by the collar and shakes him, accusing him of colluding with the guild and doing dirty deeds. Locke sighs deeply and says he did nothing of the sort. According to Locke, Isaac must explain himself before accusing the young man of dishonor. Isaac did not get the materials himself, but bought them in a store. The swordsman repeats that he defeated the monster and asks what the other man means, but Locke stays firm and leans over the table. Picking up one of the dragonfly's wings, he sees the mark of the village of Tushino, which Isaac had somehow missed. Explaining what happened, he realized Isaac had destroyed all the materials, so he had to buy replacements and put his own up for sale at a low price, and the hooligan took the bait. He said he'd read Isaac's mind, which meant Locke would rush to buy up the store's limited stock to win. They already had plenty of material, so he sold it from his own stock. He says if it weren't for the swordsman's greed, Isaac wouldn't have wasted so much money. The girls both look at it with disapproval. Isaac asks how the man ended up in the dungeon and says he can't see how it's possible, while Locke exhales calmly. He replies that a quick look at the map shows a faster, but much more dangerous route that runs straight to the dungeon. Cara says she knew it. Isaac is as furious as ever. Cara refuses to take the dangerous road and tells the boy, but he does not understand because the competition guarantees they can remain S-rank adventurers. Y asks whether the girls don't want to defeat Locke and his crew, and Isaac believes they do. Taking a deep breath, the girl adjusts her hair. She says Isaac still hasn't realized that he was the only one who really wanted to win the competition and that no one else did, which surprises him a lot. Furious as always, he scowls, and Locke turns to Isaac again to thank him for defeating the goblins, while Isaac looks surprised because he doesn't understand what the hero is talking about. Killing the goblins helped because they were harassing the people of Locke's beloved village, and the villagers couldn't afford to pay the guild. The boys felt the guild had at least asked to give the villagers some help. A grin crossed the secretary's face immediately after the hero said it. He asked Shannon on the first day after they arrived in the village to collect the wyvern's claws and scales, since those were far from their nests, and then decided the others would deal with the goblin themselves. Isaac screams that the guy used him, curses and lashes out with words, and is furious. A sharp shout stops the boy as he lunges at the hero, raising his fist and calling him a beast, and someone asks him to stop. Mr. Titus stands there with his arms crossed, watching the scene with a stern expression. He says Mr. Kid confessed to everything, including the conspiracy with Isaac. For Isaac, that means the end and nothing else. Nailing, he cries, "This is truly the end, and he must admit defeat." In the end, everything was resolved. Isaac and the rest were questioned and punished. Due to extenuating circumstances, Amy and Cara were demoted only to C rank. Isaac's S-rank team was disbanded. Karen and Amy planned to form a new one with Locke, but he politely declined. Eventually, they learned to trust each other and formed a new party, while the kid was sentenced to prison. An investigation of his crimes began, and he will not be released soon. Isaac avoided prison but was forced to work in a mine for 6 months. To become an adventurer again, he'll have to start over. In turn, the hero feels great. He's lying with his back against a tree. The dog asks him what the boy is thinking. It turned out to be nothing special. He was just thinking about his friends and staring into space. They grew up together but never really got to know each other. In the end, he says it's worth thinking about. Because his childhood friends had committed those atrocities, his relationships with his familiars became strained. Now he can accept the bitterness of betrayal. From now on, Locke will trust his friends and use his power to help them. The dog is pleased. Locke asks her to look after him, the hero. He says everything is fine and tells the hero to trust the beast. They look at each other. Shannon calls from afar that the food is ready. The friends go to eat, and another problem is solved. There is something else. Later, the hero will face another unpleasant situation. This will be discussed later. The city gates stand ahead. A group of warriors armed with various weapons stands in front of the gates. They appear preoccupied with something. Opposite the warriors stands a group of giants. Real ogres appeared unexpectedly across from the royal capital. They tower over the boys like boulders. One monster punches, sending people flying apart like chips, and the impact is very loud. Things are dire, our warriors are overwhelmed, and the ogres will push forward and destroy everything here. If the boys can hold out until nightfall, they'll be saved, but even if the adventurers arrive, they'll claim all the credit. Attempting more harm, the warrior moves in, but the ogre swings his fist and is about to hit him. Neither he nor his comrade can be saved. Locke appears on a white horse, played by the beast Lucky, and everyone is delighted by his arrival. He apologizes for the delay, and the warrior shouts at the boy to work hard to catch up and defeat the ogres. He tells them to trust him and that it's time to counterattack. They attack the monsters themselves. With the beast holding the ogre's hand, the ogre strikes with his other hand, and the young man is worried about it. A fiery spear pierces the monster's chest, launched by the sorceress Amy, who the man already knows. He thanks her, and she warns the hero to keep his guard up because it is dangerous. He asks Aunt Queen Patra to take command. It's her specialty, and she's happy to help. She oversees a complex plan to divide people into groups and mix character types in different proportions, which doesn't make much sense. The hero casts a boosting spell to strengthen everyone's powers, and they all feel better. They thank the hero again for the 1000th time. Then they rush the ogres and begin taking them down. From every side, warriors are pressing in on a single monster. Shannon and several others attack another man. A third person is stunned and thrown to the ground by others, and the dog is now active. Lucky strikes another ogre and knocks it down with his paw. Shocked by the powerful blow, Locke says Lucky's brag that it was easy is wrong because the dog is simply too strong on his own. Patra is doing great, the man thinks, and she can defeat anyone by uniting many actors. As the queen ant, she forms a great team with Shannon. Locke spots a gargoyle gun firing at one of the ogres. Forming a wind bullet, he fires at the monster, but the monster is impenetrable to that attack. In despair, the demon screams that it didn't work. His power is still sealed, and he cannot remove the seal himself. Lucky must help the gargoyle with the lock. After the fight, the 3 ogres lie on the ground in front of the city wall. Even the last one is defeated, and their rejoicing never ends. Sorceress Cara uses healing magic to heal the injured warrior's current condition. They all thank the saint because they are truly grateful to her. She says you can't put a thank you in your pocket and that they could somehow give you clothes, and she handles public attention well with a real talent for it. A man appears on a horse, surrounded by exactly the same people on horseback. Meet the Imperial Knights. Stern Marcus, captain of the Imperial Knights, leads them, thanks the adventurers for cooperating in the study of the ogres, and orders the knights to take the bodies to find out why the ogres rampaged. After defending the city, the adventurers are outraged because the bodies are valuable as a source of materials, but the knights refuse to accept objections. Locke watches silently as events unfold. A little later in the city, a man slams his fist on the table and shouts at Marcus, who is there, asking what he is talking about. The adventurer says the knight is trying to steal the monsters that rightfully belong to the guild, whose members killed the ogres. Unfazed, he says the research is necessary because the monsters appeared too close to the capital for things to be safe. We must figure this out, and payment will be provided. A guild member says the knight's payment is too small, but it is only monetary compensation. The knights will not pay more, and trade is not involved. Titus insists the knights arrived only after the battle and did not cooperate. The adventurers were the ones who fought and risked their lives. Titus demands money and more. Marcus says Titus is overstepping his bounds and should stop. Let the man go, he's discouraged. The guild secretary tells them both to wrap it up and stop arguing. She has already agreed to consult the squad's vice captain. Titus apologizes and is very sorry this happened. Marcus is still sitting here while Locke walks away with Shannon and Patra on his shoulders, and they talk about what happened. Titus admits it looks bad, but he still sees it as oppression and says the adventurers will soon flee the country. Such people are essential to the country's development and defense. They solve problems, hunt monsters, and clear dungeons. As a result, the state has fewer monster attacks and victims. People buy dungeon artifacts and grow stronger. Many other benefits follow, and Marcus is stupid because he does not understand. One man says Titus is unusually emotional, which rarely happens, and the other replies that he and Marcus have a very toxic friendship. Approaching Locke, he brings requests he claims are from the guild. The thefts of magic and combustible stones have become more frequent. Investigators are hampered by the lack of eyewitnesses. Titus wants Locke to handle it. Unusual for a hero, the guild member trusts him and will pay even if the criminal is not caught, just for the job. He says he understood everything and will do his best to investigate thoroughly. A sudden noise from Shannon surprises everyone. It is just her stomach growling because she's hungry, and she feels embarrassed and surprised. At the market on the street, a man feeds Shannon whatever he can buy here. Everyone eats dango together. This isn't dango, it's lard from a wild boar on a stick. Shannon apologizes to the man again for what happened. He tells her not to worry because he was hungry too. She thanks him for his patience. Everyone is here, and it's time to go to the one place the hero has wanted to visit for a long time. Inside the gunsmith shop, the men are inspecting everything available. The blacksmith asks Locke what's wrong, already knows the man, and they agree with each other. He says that indeed, his former comrades suffered misfortune, and the blacksmith replies that those people dared to humiliate him, and that's just the way it is. The young man is surprised that the blacksmith knows about his divine protection and support magic. The explanation is simple. The blacksmith can tell the man's gear is old and weak. Someone asks what brings the hero here this time, but Locke is actually here to collect equipment for the ant children. The blacksmith says that when Patra wore a crown, he looked closely and realized it was the queen of the ants. All the decent people in this city, including him, admire the guy. He tells him to choose whatever he wants. Familiars do choose and try different things. Finally, everyone decided. After asking Shannon and Gargoyle if he should pick something up for them and getting a polite decline, he leans over Patra and sees she has been chosen as staff. Her goal is to use magic to help people like her dad. Whether she can use magic at all is unknown. He suggests she try letting them train together more. She agrees support magic would suit her as a commander. In the end, it's all finished. A knight in a white cloak approaches. Mateo greets him, but the knight does not respond. The knight goes straight to Partha. He comes up behind the girl. With a practiced motion, he slams his foot into it, sending the monster flying back to the far wall. Rushing to her, the young man asks if she is all right. The warrior asks why the store has monsters in the first place. In his view, they are ugly. Locke asks what the warrior is doing. He replies that the inexperienced beast tamer should never have brought women and monsters here at all. The knight mocks the boys, and he says there is no need to show off just because Locke has powerful monsters at his disposal. The knight asks again who the young man thinks he is, but the young man stays sullen and says nothing. Even leans toward Patra and asks how she feels, just in case. But she's actually fine. Defending herself was easy, she said, since the man hit her too late to cause any harm, and as expected from a strong monster, Patra holds up well. The knight seems to shout at them not to ignore him, and he's not used to this at all, so he asks again whether the young man truly does not know who he is. All of Locke's friends, including Locke himself, say they don't know and generally assume the worst. Standing at full height, he tells the dirty peasants before him they need to learn, and that he will tell the boys who he is so they can study him properly. Miss Lee was born into a noble family and will without a doubt become the next leader of the knightly order. He says there's no point in fighting someone like him, but the other man says he doesn't care. The young man says missile threats do not frighten him at all and asks to apologize to Patrick right now, then becomes very angry. Missile also insults Shannon, asking Locke to get the elf, the beast, away from him, and saying it is generally unwise to start a fight with a member of the Knight's Order. She replies boldly that his words mean nothing to her and will make him answer for them. The knight mocks Shannon for hurting her feelings, exactly what he wanted. He calls her old and keeps mentioning her age, and she is suddenly offended. She tells him he's wrong, saying it wasn't the age jokes that offended her but Miss Lee calling Locke an unfinished beast tamer, which she found offensive. She pulls out a blade and points it at the man, who is stunned by the action. She says that right here and now she will teach the knight good manners and turn him from a pest into a normal person, while he understands nothing, is angry, and does not notice the figure approaching from behind. Missile even says the girl will regret this. He draws his sword, but an angry Marcus has already appeared behind him. The knight notices something behind him, turns, sees the commander, and his excitement immediately fades. After being punished, he apologizes to Patra, as Locke had originally demanded. Mark genuinely regrets his subordinate actions and apologizes to Locke, which is commendable. He apologizes to Portra, and she is fine. Locke forgives everyone here with Patra's permission. Marcus asks for forgiveness again. Marcus already knows Locke. Everyone in town understands Luck, except fools like Missile. He asks whether the boys have finished their investigation, but they have not yet, and the knight turns to the blacksmith to ask if he can tell more about the theft of combustible stones. He reports this happens about once or twice a week. Today a worker just lost one, and the criminal's motive is still unclear. Marcus confirms it is incomprehensible, and the hero now summarizes everything he has learned. The commander tells the man to report anything interesting, then returns to the main office. Watching the night fade, Locke feels surprised. Chan and two others. She expected Marcus to be more menacing and unforgiving, but he's actually a nice guy. Although Titus scolds him in this argument, the other guys are more likely to side with Titus. Locke has another idea and asks the blacksmith to show where the stones were stolen from. More information is needed to make everything beautiful. The blacksmith agrees. He leads the man into a storage room or workshop, with weapons hanging on every wall. Everything is secure, windows and doors are closed, and chests are locked with a key. One stone lay on the work table, the blacksmith explains, and the boy points out two entrances, so the thief could have entered here without the owner noticing. Still unsure why he needs the combustible stone, he notes there are many more valuable artifacts here, and the purpose is unclear, so he asks where the combustible stones are stored. Inside the chest, it's sealed shut, and no one has ever stolen a single stone. Unable to reach a conclusion from the information, the boy asks permission to summon one of them as a familiar, and when granted, he summons his Pokémon. Fortunately, he barely fits in the room. He also asks why he was brought to a place like this. The man asks to be forgiven. The blacksmith admires the beast's power. The dog says he's pleased to meet him. Someone asks whether a dog can track a thief by scent. It often can, but tracking is hard because many other scents here can mask the trail. The dog realizes it cannot help and apologizes for not being able to help. Locke says everything is fine and thanks the animal for coming. The blacksmith keeps admiring the boy and now wants the bracelet where the boy hides his familiars, unable to hide his feelings when he sees the artifact used so skillfully. He tells Shannon he saw Locke studying and that Locke used to be quite clumsy and awkward, and Shannon can't believe it. Locke asks the blacksmith to stop, but the blacksmith almost tells an embarrassing story and Locke stops him. Once again, Patrick wants to give her something. Here is a short bibliography. It's a mithril breastplate. It's light but very strong. Locke marvels at the mithril. This metal is something only the elite, like kings and aristocrats, can make equipment from. He cannot afford to accept it. That's okay. A noble family intended the armor for a child, but he fell seriously ill and could no longer use the cuirass. Asked to dispose of the plate, the blacksmith refused. He had already been paid and had not returned the money to anyone, so he can afford to give the plate away for free. They accept an expensive gift in this case, but some things need to be fixed, and the plate will arrive in a couple of days. The next morning, everyone is already in the forest. The ants brandish their sharp blades as they wait for the boars to attack them. One of them strikes the boar with a sword and kills it with a single blow, which is a rare sight. Others are firing their new weapons and doing a good job. Children showed amazing adaptability, mastering the weapon perfectly in just one day. At first, he thought they were fighting with their bare hands, but the weapons unexpectedly boosted their abilities. Frankly, Locke looks forward to their continued growth. Anyway, this is great. The boars are now fully enslaved. The request lets the team try their new skills, and there are no problems overall. He asks one of the ants, B, who was hurt, whether it hurts. Everyone exchanges a look, then Patra appears. He strokes Aunt B's head. Others also want it, and they pounce on the hero, even though he tries to bring some order. Everyone lies on the ground, happy. Locke, Shannon, and Patra conclude that the ant children are happy. Suddenly, new information fills the hero's head as the sacred beast wyvern is about to be born, and whether he will befriend her is unclear, leaving him puzzled. The shell starts to crack, and soon the three happily watch new friends hatch. They are happy to have finally hatched, and the man smiles and tells them they worked hard as a bird sits on his shoulder. The man calls the bird heavenly for caring for the eggs because he never expected the eggs he received to hatch so soon. Lucky felt a little surprised after befriending the sacred beast, the wyvern, and can now improve 3 places or objects in this dimension. Scanning the list for upgrades, the protagonist considers hot springs, a mine, and a banana tree and then chooses them this time. Soon after, the 3 objects he chose begin improving, and a stone building stands beside the hot springs. Perched on a hill, the hot spring must feel amazing to bathe in, and they now have a mine so they might be able to craft weapons and forge armor with special skills in the mini monster garden. They can now click bananas, and it's nice to watch the mini garden of monsters develop as the main character looks at the banana trees. He calls it excellent and tells everyone to return to the guild to report they have completed the request to subdue the huge boars. The girl agrees. All 4 mount their animals and split into 2 groups. The man tells the woman he will cook the huge boar meat today, and they will sell the unused meat at the market, and she agrees with a smile. While they examined its tusks and fur, the beast suddenly spotted something and stopped. The protagonist asks what is wrong, and the beast asks him to look there. A cluster of graves sits in the distance, one much larger than the rest. Watching the fireball, Lucky suddenly steps forward to check, but the protagonist says it might be a ghost and tells her to wait. The three of them end up at the cemetery and look around in silence, and the man says the fireball has disappeared. Lucky says he was unlucky. Shannon hides behind the main character and grabs his clothes, and the man notices they are all shaking. Smiling shyly, the girl apologizes for not treating ghosts very well, and the main character then strokes her head. Reassuring her, the man says they're nearby if anything happens, and that if it's too hard she can wait in the mini garden for monsters. The girl replies happily that that's fine, then walks away holding her head. The protagonist studies the largest tombstone and reads the inscription, realizing the great sage Demort is buried here. After the guy tells everyone about it, Lucky and Shannon look at him in surprise and ask him again. The protagonist says Demort is often called a great sage and, according to legend, made a major contribution to the country's development. Not only was she stunningly beautiful, she was kind and had vast knowledge and wisdom, and for the country's sake she went alone to the demon lord's castle and forced the demons to sign a ceasefire, so the peace they now enjoy is thanks to her. Shannon is surprised to be called an incredible person. The protagonist says it is just a legend, and they will never know if she truly was that person. The man says the sun is already setting, and they should head back to the guild. Lucky agrees. After a while they enter the guild, and, looking ahead in surprise, someone loudly asks if he is implying there is something wrong with their request. Angry, the guy holds the paper in his hands. The girl behind the counter repeats that the problem lies in the request's details, as she said before. She cannot say for certain whether any of the adventurers would accept that reward to fulfill the request. The main character asks for an explanation. The man with the paper realizes he is the same animal Tamer from yesterday who showed up just in time and matches the request, and the protagonist, surprised, takes the paper he hands over. Used fire rocks were found in the sewers, and they are looking for someone to clean and explore them. The man is surprised by the reward of 30 gold coins, telling the boy that he is almost asking adventurers to volunteer because the reward is too small. He asks what the significance is and expects the noble commander's request to be accepted despite such trifles. The guild exists to help the knightly orders with their errands, and they should stop whining and approve his request. He insults the girl behind the counter. The girl confronts him about what he said, grows very angry, and demands to know who he meant. The man is frightened by her appearance, but she smiles calmly. The girl says that she understands herself. Meanwhile, she sticks it on the notice board. Leaving, he calls after them that he doesn't care and they can do as they please. The main character asks the girl if she's okay. The girl says continuing the quarrel will only cause problems for others, and she thinks the only thing left is to learn from the experience. The girl is angry because she realizes he tried to insult the guild, or rather her, and the main character grows frightened and considers the request. The protagonist and Shannon walk through the sewer, holding their noses against the foul smell from combustible stones that apparently ended up there. Using hand purification, he notices the same flammable stones, but knows that alone won't let him collect enough of them, and she says she'll check there hoping to find any previously undiscovered stones. The man asks the woman to be careful because the floor here is very slippery, and she assures him she will be fine. As he can see, she says she has no problem keeping her balance, but when the girl starts to spin she trips on her heel and falls backwards. The main character prevents her from falling by reacting in time and lifting her into his arms. He tells her it's wonderful she believes in herself, but warns that too much self-confidence is dangerous. Apologizing, she realizes how close his face is. Holding her in his arms, the main character says it's time to go back because of the stench. The girl agrees. Night has already fallen. He says it's already very dark. She reflects on her feelings. He suddenly remembers something and asks Shannon to join him at the hot springs. Shannon is surprised and embarrassed. The protagonist looks up at the winged animals that flew to him and now sit on his hands. The main character says it's amazing they can already fly. People tell him wyverns grow quickly, but they can only fly about 2 meters high. He and the skybird taught them to fly. He asks the gargoyle if it can fly, and the gargoyle answers confidently that it can because its wings are not just for show. The gargoyle confidently says he can even carry both of them while flying, so the man asks him to fly around the outskirts of the capital, and the gargoyle agrees. Turning to Shannon, the protagonist asks about her, but Shannon is busy working and thinking about going to the hot springs together. The man turns to her, startling her, then says she is with them and it's time for them to go. Riding a gargoyle's back, they soar and the protagonist tells the man he's cool for lifting them both. He asks Shannon if she is okay. She agrees and then notices something. High above a beautiful city, they fly over a castle surrounded by a wall at its center. Surprised, the girl says it is very beautiful here. It looks like a carpet of light, and the guy agrees, saying he will have to show it to others. They thank the gargoyle. Surprised, he says he is glad to be useful because he is of little use in battle. The man tells him not to worry about the fights because he helps by washing and cooking and can fly, and he thinks about the man with tears. The main character tells him that if it works out, we will remove his seal, but he doubts he can remain himself afterward. The man suggests that when the wyverns grow up they should fly together, and the gargoyle agrees. The protagonist hopes that someday he will have a familiar that can fly and also carry Lucky as a passenger. Although this seems unlikely, the gargoyle knows of one such monster. Gargoyle says his griffin is quite large, so it should be able to fly while carrying Lucky. He's his best friend, so he'll help them no matter what. As soon as this issue is resolved, you need to visit him. Now it's time for them to head back. The hot spring water is bubbling. Everyone is amazed by the hot springs, and the ants begin jumping into the water to rest. Garuglia says the view is awesome. Shannon feels embarrassed that they're all together because she thought it would be just the two of them, and the man turning to her scares her. Everyone relaxes in the hot springs and says it feels nice and warm as the main character hears a splash. Lucky got into the water too and says it's very nice here. He asks if he hates baths and Lucky agrees. Lucky says he doesn't like washing, but he likes the hot springs because they're spacious and deep and let him put his whole body under the water. The pet tells the guy that he was the one who took her from the dungeon and gave her the chance to enjoy the hot springs, and she is very grateful to him. The main character says he should be the one to say thank you, because without him, he would have died in that flame of destruction. The pet extends a clawed paw toward him, and the main character smiles as he hits it with his fist. After the ants jump into the water, the gargoyle says the next spectacle is his dreamy dive. The next day, Parter puts on a beautiful dress and says it suits her perfectly, adding that it fits her very well. Thanks to Mateo, the protagonist says he also used the opportunity to forge armor for the ants and suggests they try it while they are here. The boy tells the blacksmith he needn't have gone to so much trouble, but the ants are happy, and since the blacksmith rarely gets orders for children's armor, he happily made them. He used only a little material, so he shouldn't worry and can just accept them. Ants are taking the armor apart. The main character hands him something and asks if it's enough, but the blacksmith refuses payment, saying it's not for equipment but a gesture of gratitude. The man says that if he objects, he can save them and use them when poor adventurers or a child come to him needing armor, making the equipment free of charge. The blacksmith says he's sorry that E seems to have put the protagonist in an awkward position, but he denies responsibility. Having recently left the S-rank group, he accepted the money and said he would keep it somewhere else. They wait for the blacksmith when he suddenly calls for Locke to come quickly. Locke comes in and asks what happened. Horrified, the man tells the boy that the flammable stones have just been stolen, and Locke is surprised. The blacksmith points at the window and says he saw a blue light there. Then the protagonist asks Lucky to follow the trail. Lucky sniffs and says the smell was still strong, so he tracked the thief down, but it's so crowded here the pet can barely fit into the room. The main character tells everyone except Lucky to wait in the mini garden of monsters and stay ready, and he will call them when he needs help. Unlucky, a man runs down the street past people and realizes they pulled it off so quietly. He wonders who could have done it. At last they arrive back at Demort's grave, and the main character is surprised. The main character asks Lucky whether it is really here. Lucky answers yes, and the trail ends beyond the grave. He scans the area and sees nothing suspicious, even if a ghost stole the stones. Suddenly, he hears a sound. After he asks the heavenly bird what happened, she gives him the flower of exorcism. Light pours from the grave as it slides back to reveal a staircase leading down, surprising everyone. The protagonist believes he was tricked by that illusion. Such a powerful spell was new to him. Lucky asks what they should do with them. The passage is too narrow for him to pass through. He conjures a light and descends, wondering if the stolen stones might be here. Locke steps into an empty room and thinks how unexpected it is to find such a space under a grave, and someone tells him guests are rare. A woman's skeleton in a dress suddenly appears, exuding an ominous aura, and the protagonist assumes she is a lick. The skeleton tells him that finding this place proves he is a high-ranking magician, so the main character draws his sword and asks who the skeleton is, and the skeleton says the only creature that lives beneath its own grave is herself. Startled, the man cannot believe she is Demort, and Demort says that even if she is, there is nothing he can do, so as he doubts it, a fairy speaks to him from above. She orders him to put the weapon away and asks what he meant to do with the Mort. Caught off guard by Pixie, the protagonist hides his sword. Pixie warns that if he's looking for a fight, he'll have to get through her first, and she will burn him until he becomes a juicy puddle of fire. Demort asks Lala to stop. Doubting that her words make any sense, Lala says his introduction to her rage is cancelled. Demort asks the man why he came here. The man says several combustible stones were stolen today, and he came to investigate. They were following a thief's trail, and he led them here, but he has no idea who the thief is, and Lala becomes scared afterward. Pixie takes a loud sip, and the man notices. Demort asks if Lala did it, and Pixie apologizes loudly. Unable to find any in the dungeon, she stole them. Demort asks if she told her not to cause problems for others. Pixie says she goes quiet when she doesn't have those flammable stones, and the protagonist asks if there is a reason for that. Demort says it's nothing special, that without combustible stones her life will simply burn, and the protagonist is shocked. She wonders how much time has gone by since then. She remembers drinking and how everyone watched her. The girl says the sake is almost gone, have them bring her more. This is Damort, a great sage, or rather an inveterate alcoholic. Opposite her, the horned man trembles and tenses and says he can't handle it anymore. Smiling, she asks if he can even drink that much, and though he's a demon lord, he ignores her because he feels bad. Confidently, the girl says that victory is hers, as he promised, and wonders if he will end the war. Angrily, the man tells her that the demons did not want to start this war. People cut down all the trees on the hills and fields, starving the monsters, so he simply took back some of the land. As demons, they do not know how to grow food, and the girl watches him silently. Demort tells him she will teach them to grow food, and asks if he will then stop the war. After that, food was plentiful, and the monsters felt content with full stomachs. When the war ended, Demort used the opportunity to devote herself to research on the problem of nutrition. Meanwhile, she had a student named Lydia, who was very kind and always smiling. Her magic was weak, but her people's skills were unmatched, earning her the trust of many, and as someone who could not hold a conversation without alcohol, she admired that ability. The girl tells Lydia this should greatly speed up crop growth and congratulates her. Tay argues that producing more food with fewer workers should solve the food problem faster. Lydia turns to the master, who suddenly falls silent and looks upset, and asks if it is time to continue exploring the hidden treasures. Lydia says if they create undead and put them to work, those undead can produce food for them constantly, and because undead do not even need food, less labor will be required. Demort reminds Lydia she already said she would stop researching the undead. She once studied the undead and nearly finished her work, but that research should never be completed. Even if only theoretical, such capabilities could be used for military purposes and would certainly upset the world's balance of power, whether Lydia understands this. The girl asks what is wrong with that. The master says they are in peacetime now and food shortages don't matter. They should focus on research that is shaking the world. Lydia wants to achieve something that will put her name in history, so she became her student because a trivial study like this won't do. The master asks Lydia to stop. She says that at this rate she will never become number one. After some time, Lydia disappeared along with her research into the undead. From then on, she spent the rest of her life searching for Lydia and never found her, believing her search and her research into the undead were over, though she died and did not stay dead. Over many years, her magic mixed with the soil's magic and slowly turned her into a skeletal undead called a lick. Being undead herself, she knew what it felt like, and though in life she had unlimited magical power, while creating new rooms under the grave she had to limit her magic and also cast an illusion on the entrance. She used her own body as a test subject and resumed studying the undead. If Lydia finishes her research on the undead, she must build a countermeasure, but it won't last long. As expected, without a supply of magic, she cannot maintain this body, and there are no magic stones left for her to use. Just when she thought it was the end, Pixie flew into the room. A skeleton greeted her, and she froze when she realized it was one of the undead. It told her this was her grave. Pixie apologizes for arriving so suddenly. The skeleton says it's okay, mentions Pixie as her first guest, and notices Pixie's bent wing. Pixie says loudly that it's not her concern and asks whether it looks ugly. The skeleton wonders why. She says the wing keeps her from flying well. Everyone keeps telling her she should be ashamed of it. The master asks Pixie what she should do if she thinks it is ugly, since she is a skeleton who is not only ugly, but also frightening. Besides, she can't even fly, and it would be great if she could. The girl extends her hand to Pixie, says her name is Demort, asks what her name is, and Pixie laughs and says her name is Lala. Later they talked about many things. Lala asked if that was the great sage's name. She was surprised to discover the skeleton before her was the sage. That's how each of them got a friend. After that, she told her about her imminent death and decided to return the magic stone. She will not let Demort die. The girl admits she stole the combustible stone and insists that, whatever punishment he chooses, Lala must not be involved. Lala admits she stole the stone and says let him punish her. Demort says everything is fine and tells everyone to follow her orders. Pixie calls her a liar and an old hag and says she stole the stone on a whim, while Demort asked her to stick to her story and said everything would be fine. Demort asks her to understand and not risk her life for someone who will soon die. Pixie says Demort is her first friend and she does not want her to die. The protagonist looks at them and believes these crimes are likely to be punished by death. She could have beaten him and run away, but she chose honesty and decided to make amends. Two kind people take on each other's guilt. The protagonist sums up by saying they both stole from the store and from the knight's order. Pixie admits she stole from the store, but not from the knight's order. Are they aware of the large amount of stone stolen from the order? Pixie says she doesn't know what he means. Realizing this means there is another thief, the protagonist suddenly notices something outside. They step outside and are shocked to see their capital burning in the distance. All three watch the capital burn. The protagonist tells Lucky it's time for them to return to the capital, to the pedigrees. Coffee catches Demortez's attention, and she asks to go with them. People in the capital are fleeing in panic from terrifying creatures. Shouting, the warriors urge everyone to run as fast as possible to the western gate. Then one of them notices how the man fell. Cursing, he rushes forward and saves the girl with a quick sword strike, and the monster falls to the ground exhausted as he tries to catch his breath. Suddenly, another monster appears and rushes the man, knocking him to the ground and nearly biting him. A moment later, something big and heavy hits the monster as the girl with ears swings a huge hammer. The girl asks if he's okay, and he replies, surprised that he is and thanking her. Realizing the situation is bad, she wonders why it is happening now with so few adventurers. The protagonist runs toward her and turns to Rika, and the girl smiles, glad that she came. He asks her what's happening. It turns out a huge number of monsters stored in the knightly order suddenly became undead and went berserk. This shocks everyone. Adventurers join the fight, but holy magic alone cannot stop the undead. Moreover, since the knightly order began removing monster bodies, many adventurers moved to other countries and asked foreign guilds for help, but help will take time to arrive. Everyone sees the monsters attacking the girl, who says she will head that way, counts on Locke, and protects the person attacked by the undead. Demort believes this situation came from those scientific studies and the strange magic around them. Lydia is to blame for everything. She used the combustible stones as a core to feed the undead, enabling her to finish her research on them and proving she stole all the missing combustible stones. The protagonist asks to leave the explanation for later, orders everyone except the wyverns to leave, and they all agree. The man tells his team to destroy all the monsters and protect the people, gives Patra the authority to issue orders, and she accepts, surprised. Lockwoods begins to say something else, but notices they are being attacked by orcs. Demorte reacts and uses the hellish dungeon to erect an enormous wall. Demort reports that Toucha will help too and that her magic is amazing. The protagonist introduces her to everyone and chooses the name Lala for himself. They are allies, so there is no reason to be afraid. Demort says she is pleased to meet you. Demort says she is near death after using too much magic. Does anyone have any magic stones? He turns to Patra, and she says she has plenty, but left the rest at home. Recognizing their high quality, Demort knows that with such numbers she can surround the whole kingdom with a sacred barrier and destroy all the undead. A man asks whether it's true. Mort says she needs time to cast the spell. They will buy her the time she needs. Everyone rushes in, attacks the undead, and defeats them with melee weapons and magic. The ants also manage to win and celebrate, but the main character warns them to be careful because the undead will still come to life. The defeated undead's body begins to vanish, surprising the protagonist. He asks what this means. If even Shannon and other adventurers cannot defeat them, why can only familiars do it? Realizing this, the protagonist turns to Shannon and asks her to tell the other adventurers to support his familiars. The skill makes their attacks holy. The girl realizes this, and the protagonist senses a ray of hope. His pets successfully handle the undead. The main character knows this is great. The pets have already destroyed most of the monsters. He realizes there is very little left and notices that the knightly order has arrived. All the adventurers glare at the knights, demanding to know why it's taking so long and telling them to stop fooling around. The knights' faces turn gloomy, and the main character tells them to wait because one knight is aiming a bow at them. All of them fire arrows at the group, while its members simply stare at the knights. Everyone stares in shock as arrows fly straight at them, then fall to the ground when Lucky covers everyone with his tail and the arrows do not stick to it. The protagonist thanks him for hardening his fur with magic. Lucky agrees. The man asks the knights what they are thinking since they are their allies. The man notices they have red eyes, and the main knight says their enemies are ahead and tells them to kill those enemies. Someone asks the protagonist what to do. The man asks that for now they just knock it out, and the gargoyle asks the wind spirits to come to him. The gargoyle casts a spell, launching a giant magical orb at enemies to damage them. Spirits attack the knights and the protagonist watches, unsure if the spirits succeeded, but the knights get back up. The gargoyle worries it can still fly, so the protagonist considers what to do. A knight behind him swings his sword, and the man tries to dodge at the last moment. Suddenly something hits him in the face. It's a short girl from the group of guys, and the knight tilts to one side. After she tells him not to lower his guard, he thanks Patro, apologizes, and that knight barely manages to stand. The knight clutches his cheek and shouts at the ant that it hurts. The protagonist smiles and asks whether the knight recognizes them. The knight says, of course, that they take him for an idiot. Looking around, he says the atmosphere feels strange, then notices his eyes look normal and wonders if they fixed his brain, since magic couldn't knock it out, but blunt force did. The man tells everyone to listen and says they should just beat the knights so a hard blow will bring them to their senses. Everyone understands. When the knight asks what happened, the man explains the capital was attacked by an army of the undead, and someone then brainwashed the knightly order, and the knight understands what that means. The protagonist tells him to leave and help evacuate the civilians, but he refuses, saying he is a knight of the knightly order, and his duty is to fight and protect people. Monsters that harm the kingdom's people will feel his fury as he charges into battle. The protagonist asks him to stop because he can't handle this alone, arguing a tiny Mage isn't worth the distraction and it's better to go after big game, so the knight decides and runs toward the largest one. Knight screams, strikes the undead, and asks whether he got it, but the undead simply turns away. Horrified to see his attack barely hurt it, the knight is struck by the undead with full force. Sent flying, he falls to the ground and drops his sword. Battered, he barely makes it to his knees and looks ahead. The undead stands and swings a fist at him. The knight realizes things are bad. The fist is already moving toward him. With all his strength, he strikes the man so hard the ground beneath him cracks as everyone watches in shock. Patra protected him by holding back the undead's hand, so it failed to hit the man. The girl tells the guy he's a weakling and should just run away, and he becomes angry. The man runs toward her, knowing that even as an A-rank monster, 2 blows from the orc would still overpower her. A man rushes forward, kills the undead, and must still make it to Patra, but for some reason he is horrified. The massive undead swings again, but Patra can no longer move and stands motionless. In the next moment, the undead strikes from above and crushes Patra and the knight. Like everyone else, the main character stares in horror at what the undead have done and refuses to accept what is happening. Locke remembers with horror every moment with Patra, her joy and constant laughter. Collapsing to the ground in despair, the protagonist begins to cry and shouts the name of the Patra aloud. A wyvern sweeps Patra into the sky and carries her straight to the protagonist. Everyone but Locke sees it. Lucky tells his master to breathe easy because Potter is actually fine, and Potter lifts his head in surprise. Stunned, Patra apologizes to him after nearly dying. The main character cannot understand how she survived. Anna reports that Wyvern helped her and remembers how it pulled her out, while the man asks when they became so big and notes the knight was also saved. Gargoyle reports that the dragons are growing very fast. The man asks whether this is serious and whether it could be caused by his power as a tamer. He thinks they help him a lot. Shannon turns to Locke and says it's not the time. A crowd of undead stands before them. The protagonist gives Patra a potion. Patra drinks it and her skin begins to glow. Grateful, she thanks him because she can move again. The wyvern lifts her up and everyone is about to jump on them. All the ants ride the wyverns inside the gargoyle, and the main character is surprised because they look like tiny dragons. They start attacking from above to finish off the remaining undead. The main character thinks this is great, but now he has to deal with the remaining knights, and when someone charges at him from behind with a sword, he manages to dodge. He steps back and looks at the knight, who asks Locke if he intends to interfere. The knight declares the knightly order will remove every adventurer from the guild and eliminate Titus. If Locke dares to stand in his way, he will meet his death as he attacks the man who barely holds back the blow. It was expected that the head of the knightly order would barely parry his blows, but he had not expected to fight him directly. After that, the knight lands a kick to the protagonist's stomach, making him cry out in pain and fly backward, while Shannon anxiously screams his name. The protagonist finds this completely uncool. The opponent is very strong and locks his shots on Marcus to bring him back to his senses. Marcus insists he is sane. Locke says they are the strange ones wherever they go, and Titus is to blame as the leader of the adventurers who were killed. Marcus is the king's recognized head of the knightly order, regardless of how they feel about it. He is superior to them. Marcus says the country only needs a knightly order, and the protagonist looks at him. Marcus holds a sword, declares that anyone who stands in his way must die, and rushes at the protagonist. Lucky suddenly pushes him aside with his tail and tells him to be quiet. The protagonist watches this awkwardly. The knight is weak. Lucky calls him a noisy fellow, and the main character thanks Lucky for saving him. The girl asks Locke how he feels. He says he's fine and asks about Marcus. Marcus moves a finger first, then gets to his feet and moves strangely. The protagonist asks Lucky which part of his body he hit because he is moving suspiciously. Lucky says he always acts like that. Marcus laughs. Marcus looks ahead and calls their joking in this situation absurd, saying the adventurers don't care about anything at all. The protagonist notices Marcus's tone has changed, asks Marcus who he is, and sees that Marcus's eyes have turned black. Marcus reveals he is Lydia herself, the first student to taste the legendary sage's knowledge. Demort is the heir to her will, and everyone is surprised by her words. When the protagonist asks what she wants, Lydia in Marcus's body says she will give him an answer before he dies. Her goal is for her research into the power of the undead treasures to be known worldwide. This country will be sacrificed to help her achieve this goal. She tells them not to worry about dying because she can still use them as undead. The protagonist tells him this isn't a study because Demort started it, and while he's surprised she knows that, she finished it, and now the study is hers. He asks her if that means she stole the combustible stones, and she scoffs that he already knows about it. In fact, she took control of the head of the knightly order and stole them. He was looking for the criminal. Since she was that criminal, the whole thing is a farce. This, she believes, is the note they can end their conversation on. Turning to the knights and the undead, she orders them to kill everyone here. Knight points ahead and laughs, telling them all to die screaming in pain, while the protagonist watches with displeasure. Lydia can't make sense of it, since most of them should already be resting. She says they'll see each other soon, puts the body back into the knight, and then he falls to the ground. Shannon wonders where her real body might be, and the protagonist asks Lucky to find her, but Lucky says he can't without her scent, and someone approaches to apologize for the wait. Demort casts the spell and vows to destroy any undead that dares stand in their way. The main character tells them they've already taken care of everyone, and the demote falls silent and looks around. Demorte sits down and says now would be the perfect time for a beer. The protagonist apologizes and asks her where they can find Lydia. Demort admits that, of course, she knows, asks them to follow her, and leads them to a tower. The protagonist realizes Lydia is in a watchtower outside the city as they look up. The protagonist orders everyone except Shannon and Patra to be ready in the monster garden. The others leave. The main character tries to go through the door, but Demortet tells him the entrance is not there. She casts a spell and directs the magic forward. The staircase reappears in the ground, and the main character realizes the entrance was hidden by illusion magic, so he must go inside. They all walk down the stairs and try to identify the foul smell. Demorta doesn't know how Lydia managed to live for over 100 years, and it's unlikely her body is in good condition. Everyone enters a room where a girl sits in the center, closing a book and looking at them. Impressed they have come this far, she finds their appearance here unexpected. They should have faced a bunch of undead outside, so it is unclear how they got through. Ultimately, they defeated them all, and the knightly order finally came to its senses. Lydia doubts they are serious because they seem like masters of jokes, but Demort insists it is not a joke. Demort steps forward and tells Lydia they have not seen each other for a long time, but Lydia does not recognize her. Lydia can't remember ever creating an undead like herself, so Demort takes her into the hellish dungeon to restore her memory. Stunned by the ancient magic, the girl uses the water dragon's roar to break Demort's spell. Barely able to stand, the girl thinks of the flame and then asks if she is dead. Lydia says she turned into an undead to stop her fame from spreading around the world. Demort says that if she were a better person she would have been successful, and the girl asks her to shut up. She admits she trained even after her death so she would not lose to her again, calls for eternal darkness, and attacks her master. Demort says that even though she works so hard, she is still a stupid child, and she also attacks her. The two girls' attacks collide as everyone watches in shock. The main character wonders whether they have equal chances, and Mort realizes she has become stronger. Lydia declares loudly that of course she does, and points out how many years have passed since her death. The main character turns toward where Patra went, approaches Lydia and greets her, then looks at the girl in bewilderment. Patra suddenly strikes Lydia in the face with her staff, sending her flying back, and Lydia protests that it's not fair and that she can't fight them all alone. Patra glares at the girl, frightening her, and the main character realizes the girl almost died because of Patra, so he sees Patra this angry for the first time. Lydia says she uses many shadow illusions that produce clones, and asks Patra how she does it and which clone is the real one. Patra immediately punches the real one in the face. Lydia realizes her illusion magic failed on the real body, and her strong smell makes it easy to pick her out among the copies. Patrick says her death would upset Daddy, and she won't let that happen as Lydia holds her bruised cheek and asks what she means. Demort raises her hand toward Patra, apologizes for interrupting, and asks Patra to let her handle it because she wants to take responsibility and deal with her student. Patra nods and Demort agrees, suggesting that Lydia finish because they have lived too long. Demorty casts a magic ball, and Lydia is shocked because she is using holy magic, which should be impossible. Is Demorty trying to commit suicide? Everyone watches in shock as Lydia explains that because holy magic was used, nothing of the undead remains. Is she really going to do this? Demort says this is the only way to destroy all the undead, that everything will be fine, and she suggests they die together, but the girl becomes angry. Lala rushes toward her, screaming that she can't do this and begging her not to leave. Overjoyed to have met her, Demort begins to disappear. Lala screams her name. Now the protagonist conjures something with his hand and sends a magical attack at Lydia, which pierces her. She stares at the wound in her chest in horror and screams, then collapses and, lying on the ground, asks him how he creates holy magic without chance while he keeps holding her hand. Apologizing to Demort, the protagonist says she shouldn't disappear because of someone like her. Lydia swears angrily that she hadn't expected to fight such a high-ranking magician, and that if she had just a little more she could have gotten rid of Demort. Promising to return even stronger next time so they will see, the girl begins to die. Afterward, Demort realizes it was not a real body. The protagonist agrees, saying there is no point in sacrificing herself for something like that. Demort says he finds it incredible she became too emotional, misjudged the situation, and that he saved her. Pixie Lala hugs Demort and tearfully thanks the heavens, relieved she did not disappear. Demort apologizes for making her worry, but says they must part soon, and Lala stares at her in horror. All the magic stones are gone, and the stolen ones can't be used, so this is goodbye. Lala suggests Locke can share with them, but Demort says they must stop bothering him. Smiling, the protagonist asks Demort if he will be his familiar. Becoming his familiar would let her use as many magic stones as she needed, and she would still have to deal with Lydia. She asks whether he is really sure he wants to make her his familiar, a representative of the dark race, and the protagonist agrees only because he has holy magic. This could harm her, and at worst, she might simply disappear. Smiling, the girl says that as long as there is even the smallest chance to keep living, she will accept any outcome, and La looks at her. The undead Queen of Darkness wants to befriend the main character, and he must decide whether to accept, but there is one catch. The man tells her that because she is of a dark race, her dark magic will be greatly weakened, but she is not in danger of disappearing. She says everything is fine and that she is counting on him. Light surrounds her. The undead Queen of Darkness has transformed into a holy beast and become his friend, making an upgrade for one of the monster garden companions available. The protagonist is thinking about a small salt mine and will pick it. The monster garden has been expanded, and the man asks what will happen to Lala, who is happy. Pixie is the Queen of Darkness's familiar. After the Queen of Darkness became his familiar, Pixie became his too. Grateful, the girl thanks the guy and asks him again to take care of her. The protagonist is also happy to meet them, and street repairs are underway in the capital. He orders everyone to help rebuild the city, and will go to the guild to report the request. At the guild, Rika meets him and says he's just in time, leaving him at a loss. Several serious men are already waiting for him inside, and he is trying to figure out what is going on here. The protagonist looks awkwardly at the two men waiting and thinks about the room's oppressive atmosphere. The man wonders if the two are really just sitting quietly or if something else happened since they were always fighting, and Locke asks Ricky what's going on. Smiling, the girl makes a positive gesture and leaves the room. The man asks her to wait, but someone addresses him. One of the guys apologizes for calling Locke when he was very busy, and Locke says it's okay. The knight's leader also stands and apologizes, saying his incompetence nearly killed him and he is deeply sorry. Surprised, Locke tells them everything is fine now and asks them to let him raise his head. He asks whether all members of the knightly order were brainwashed and what happened. The knight says he is very sorry but has no memory of what happened. Maybe it all began 6 months ago when he met a girl named Lydia. He also remembers the girl appearing alone right in front of him during his training. Though it was their first meeting, he felt like he was standing in front of someone he'd known for years, and the sweet smell he noticed might have been medicine or a spell. Gathering the rest of the knightly order, she forced them to collect monster bodies to help develop the country, claiming adventurers were an unnecessary nuisance and Titus the source of evil, and they believed her. They seized the bodies of powerful monsters by force and planned to drive the adventurers out of this country. He also wants to apologize to Titus, and the person responsible for the whole adventure feels deep regret, surprising Titus and the protagonist. Titus says he can hardly believe that a proud man like him would bow his head before him. Titus stands and accepts the apology. Marcus thanks him, and he extends his hand. He will do everything he can to calm the adventurers, but for now they must work together and begin rebuilding the city, he says with a smile. Marcus supports us because he looks forward to our joint activities. That is how the knightly order has vowed to work side by side with adventurers. The guild also tried to find the location, but it was not easy. As leader of the knightly order, Marcus would be blamed for the entire incident, but the king chose to focus on rebuilding the city for now and said he would deal with Marcus later, while another man reminded himself. The kid, once a hero, escaped. Ricker says he slipped away during their skirmish with the undead. It is unclear whether the escape was accidental. A month later, the group is finally at the seaside, cooking, relaxing, and drinking. Shannon is surprised that the sea here is so amazing. The protagonist agrees and then is surprised by something else. He looks at the girl who had thought something was wrong from the moment they met, and she has become more cheerful. The girl tells Locke it's all thanks to him. Smiling, she thanks him for saving her. The protagonist laughs awkwardly, and Lucky apologizes for interrupting and asks why they came to the sea today. Locke says that all this time they had been helping restore the city, thanks to the patron and others, and the work went well, so he decided it was time to change the scenery. They deserve a break to relax and enjoy a barbecue. Someone asks him about the barbecue. A barbecue is a way of cooking meat and vegetables outdoors so people can eat together. Everyone is happy they will always be together. We'll discuss the details later, but for now we need to eat until we're full. Everyone agrees and begins eating the freshly cooked meat. Even the small bird perched on the man's head eats meat, and he suddenly remembers he hasn't named it yet. Startled, the bird looks on as the man asks what to name her and thinks about it seriously. He wants to call her Yakitori, which upsets her, and he says it was a joke and that barbecues are bad for him, so we'll have to see. Going through many names aloud shocks the bird, but when the main character suggests CL, she is happy and likes the name. Locke looks at the happy bird and realizes she apparently doesn't like food-related names. From now on, she is CL. Demort turns to Locke and says she cannot help but mention that the meat is soft, juicy, and pleasant to the taste. Perplexed, the protagonist asks Dumort who she is, and Dumort turns into a skeleton and says she is. Now that she was here, his human form seemed easier on the eyes, and she could even go into the city in it, but he knew they had many magic stones, and since she ate only bones, it was unclear how she would eat. She asks him not to go too deep and to tune into the mood. He agrees, and Lala asks what the sauce is, calling it a real delicacy. The man explains it's a special sauce he made from onions and ginger, with a subtle apple aroma. Lala has never tasted a sauce this good, and she's very glad they met Locke. She can't wait for more of his delicious dishes. She begins to pester him. He agrees to eat a bit. Demort turns the water into a slide, the ants ride on it, and the main character eats meat. The protagonist is fishing when Lucky asks what he's doing. Locke explains he catches fish by tying a hook and bait to a line, then a fish swims up and swallows the bait. Lucky says it sounds interesting and he'll try it too. Lucky dips his tail into the water, and the man points out there is no bait on it. He laughs and says with such an attractive tail, he doesn't need bait. Lying back in his pet's soft fur, the main character thinks about the nice weather today. Sometimes it's useful to just relax like this. Lucky relaxes too, closes his eyes, and agrees with the guy. Remember that every moment is precious, because something can suddenly tug at Lucky's tail. Shaken, Lucky tells Locke he caught something, and the protagonist asks him to pull the tail out right now. The main character stares in shock at something attached to Lucky's tail, a mermaid who is surprised by the fluffy tail and holding on with her hands. The main character and Lucky watch the mermaid as she continues to delight in her fluffy tail. Lucky asks what to do now. The mermaid does not look harmless, and we must return her to the sea. Lucky waves his tail, but the mermaid has grabbed it tightly. The girl is happy to see the fluffy pet so energetic, and the main character tells his pet not to give up. Suddenly magic appears, pushes the mermaid back into the sea, and the main character asks what it was. Locke's friends turned to him and asked what had happened because a loud noise had come from here. The man said nothing like that happened. The mermaid rose out of the water again. Screaming at the fluffy again, she clings to Lucky's tail, which scares him, and Shannon is shocked. Lucky says he won't hold back this time. The mermaid asks him to wait. The mermaid says she is not a suspicious mermaid. She is simply overwhelmed by the desire to touch the fluffy charm and is happy with her tail. Lucky uses magic to send the mermaid back into the sea. Shannon calls her creepy and too suspicious. All the mermaid's fur flies out of the water again as they reach to touch Lucky's fluffy tail. Lucky is already afraid she'll be sent back. He asks Locke to save him, thinks about what to do, and then Demort tells him to leave it to her. She conjures a huge ball directly above her as everyone watches. With a smile, Demort says that if the mermaid wants to stay, he will turn her into a fried fish so she will calmly choose to return to the sea. The mermaid says this was to be expected from the people of the land. They will immediately force her away from the fluffy ones. Then she will answer them in kind. A growl summons Leviathan, and something under the water begins to move. A massive water snake called Leviathan appears, and everyone stares in shock. Surprised by Leviathan's arrival, the girl listens as the main character explains that it is the most powerful inhabitant of the sea depths. The mermaid says everything is in order. This is Leviathan, the Seeking. She orders him to display his power. Leviathan addresses everyone, introduces himself as Leviathan, and says he is very pleased to meet them. Surprised, the protagonist says it's nice to meet him too. The mermaid asks what that means. If he doesn't fight, she can't be with the fluffy one, and she knows he won't fight. They'll understand if she talks to them. The mermaid asks him what he is saying. The people on land only talk with their fists. You can only make friends with them by fighting. They praise their opponent, and before you know it, she's with the fluffy one. When the mermaid asks him to show some of his power, he agrees and begins to cast a spell. Leviathan unleashes the delicate water dragon's tempest, turning the water behind him into a raging surge. People are surprised by how strong he is. This aid magic seems comparable to Fenrir's magic. Demort is curious about this. Determined, the girl says this time she will also show him her true power and release the magic of illusions, then transforms into a skeleton and summons the ancient spirits to her. Leviathan suddenly screams that it is a monster, then dives underwater, leaving everyone stunned. When the mermaid asks where he went, Leviathan trembles and says he is afraid of monsters. Lucky tells the mermaid that she knew he was afraid of ghosts, and the girl calls him a sly fox. Smiling, she says it does not matter, admits she likes feet, asks the guy why they should not be friends, and the main character immediately refuses. The mermaid asks if, since they already exchanged blows, they can now become comrades. The man says that is not true. She worries that at this rate she will have no one in her village to ask for help. He asks her what kind of trees those are. The mermaid points out he has a gargoyle, wyverns, and orange ants. A girl loudly asks the man to help them as well, requesting aid for their village, but the main character does not understand exactly what she needs. The mermaid says some kind of fish have appeared there, and serious trouble has started, asking for help again, but Locke does not understand what she means. The girl considers how to explain this to her, and Leviathan turns to May to ask permission to tell them everything. He comes up from the water and tells them that 3 days ago, a village of mermaids on the sea floor was attacked by a group of fishermen. Fishmen are half human and half fish-like, with traits from fish, squid, or sharks that are more pronounced than their human traits, while mermaids have more human features, making them a separate species. So far, the mermaids have never been hostile to the fishermen, but they are not close either. After a century of peace, almost no villagers had combat experience, so when a sudden attack hit, the fisherman captured the village and took many mermaids captive. He was meant to be the guardian deity of the mermaid village, though he is ashamed to admit he is not particularly skilled in battle. May was away from the village then and safe, so she went to ask the local people for help, and the main character understood. Leviathan then asks them politely to help them. Even taking their story into account, they cannot fight if they cannot breathe underwater, and Leviathan tells them not to worry. Surprisingly, he took some air grass with him, and the main character wants to know what it is. Leviathan says eating air grass will let him breathe underwater. Water pressure will not be an issue. The man had no idea it existed. It can only be gathered in the mermaid village. If the man helps them free the village, he can take as much of this grass as he wants. The man says he cannot put the others at risk. The ant girl asks him to help them. Everyone else wants to help the mermaids, which surprises the main character, and he says if they agree he will too. The mermaid asks whether they will really help them and thanks them, then squeezes the soft charm as much as she wants and grabs Lucky's tail again. Without warning, he uses magic to silently toss her into the water. I keep worrying about her fate in the water. They chose to help the mermaids. He does not believe it. The properties of the aerial grass leave him amazed. Shannon swings his sword and realizes it will be much harder to move quickly underwater. The other man understands this. They won't be strong enough to fight underwater. Ants on the gargoyle and the wyverns swim very quickly and are very happy in the water. The wyverns were amazing, even using their wings here, and the gargoyle moved quickly using wind magic. The protagonist should try too, but notices Lucky can't swim. The man thinks this is a bit too much for Lucky, and everyone agrees to move forward, with everyone except Gargoyle able to step into the monster garden. Together they swim up to the cave, and Leviathan says it leads to the mermaid village. The mermaid tells them to swim ahead, and if they can, keep up with her, and they all swim into the cave. They arrive in a mermaid village, and surprised, look around as the main character realizes where they are. May asks whether it is a fascinating sight, since a special magic hides the village from the sea, and no one has set foot there for centuries, so he should feel honored. Suddenly, Leviathan grabs all three with a strange rope, shocking everyone. May asks what he is doing, but he tells them to be quiet. A shark-shaped fishman swims past the tea. The protagonist is surprised, and Leviathan says he is probably on patrol. The rest of the mermaids are probably in the queen's castle at the center of the village where he saw them, and after they escaped, the man asks what to do and whether to attack directly, which is impossible, so they will use the alley that leads to the castle. Leviathan tells me he needs her to lead them. They notice she is missing. The mermaid has already gone outside and is calling the fishman to free everyone. She tells him she has befriended the lock, but he suddenly attacks her, and she asks him to wait because she hasn't finished speaking. Leviathan protects me by knocking out the fishman and asks the mermaid what she is doing. May says she won't allow such a pathetic coward to take part in the dastardly attacks. They don't have time for that now. A second fishman attacks Leviathan from behind, but the protagonist blocks the strike and saves him. Swimming back, the fisherman realizes they seem to have been spotted. Now that it's come to this, they'll have to break through. Circling them quickly, he seems fast to the protagonist but still can't build enough speed to maneuver, so the gargoyle asks Locke to grab onto him. The protagonist woos him, and together they catch the moment he hits the fishman. They fly out of the water and look down together to see if they manage to win. The fishman simply sits on his knee, and the main character is surprised to realize it has no effect. The main character denies that, since he wouldn't say it was completely without effect. Again, the fishman starts swimming rapidly around the main character, and the man watches closely. The protagonist asks the gargoyle to dodge 50 centimeters to the right, and he agrees, doing as asked. Then he says the next turn should be 70 centimeters to the left, and Gargoyle does what it needs to do. The gargoyle asks what's happening, and as the protagonist expected, the fishman continues repeating the same movements. His eyes were probably washed like those of the Knightly Order. No one knows who is to blame. He seems unable to attack accurately. This means they can resist him, so let the gargoyle move 3 meters diagonally to the left. The protagonist jumps onto the fishman and tells Leviathan to act, asking it to bind them with tentacles, and it agrees. Leviathan extends its tentacles and joins the main character in embracing the fishman. Leviathan says they swaddled him, though he doubts he can speak. Before he could talk to them normally, he considered who was behind this, but for now he had to hurry to rescue the others. Many more fishermen were tied up, including all the guards in the village. There were surprisingly few of them. The mermaid turns to San and asks why he tied her up. San says letting her move freely would have caused countless problems. She is angry with him. Several mermaids swim up to them and turn to May, who beams at Madeline's arrival and hugs her. She says she's very happy, then sheds a tear, and the protagonist is surprised to see it has crystallized. Pearl tears form when mermaids with strong magic feel intense emotions. Madeline asks the boy if he is Locke, introduces herself as honored to serve the queen, and thanks him sincerely for helping them. The man says it's not worth it because these aren't all the mermaids. Madeline says many of the queen's mermaids were taken to the fishermen's village. They were locked here, and the place was used as a prison camp. Understanding this, the protagonist knows they must go at once to help the others. She asks him to wait and hands him her pearls. Locke is surprised to see it's the same pearl. They give it to him as a token of their gratitude. The girls look to him and ask if he can help them again, and he agrees. In the Fishman village, patrols sweep the area, and the protagonist watching this thinks there are a lot of them. Right above them is a ship owned by people, though it looks out of place. A man and a fish man stand on the ship. Realizing he can speak and may be their leader, he is asked to look there and is surprised. Seeing a mermaid in a cage, he is stunned to realize this is real and that they are selling mermaids. Many people notice someone trading mermaids and are surprised. A ship carrying a mermaid sails away from the shore, alarming the onlookers. The heroes decide to help free the mermaids, and one suggests heading to the ship as quickly as possible. The hero says there may be other captive mermaids missing from the ship and urges a return to their secret lair to rescue everyone. Following Locke's words, the little animal sets off after the ship to find their secret lair. The young man knows they must find a way to rescue the mermaids trapped in the fishing village. Mermaids request permission to assume guard duties to support the operation to free their sisters. Mermaids say they are trained fighters and will act despite the danger. The hero worries about the mermaids' safety, but they insist on joining, saying it's their duty. Lucky proposes a solution to the problem, showing enthusiasm and a desire to help. Madeline asks if the mermaid and Lucky can handle the task together, and Lucky confidently says he believes in their abilities. The dragon admits the heroes may be stronger than him, winning the others' trust. Surprised, the girl asks how this is even possible, revealing her bewilderment. The mermaid and the small creature gear up and move forward, determined to finish the task. Confidently, the girl says she trusts their combined strength and stresses the importance of teamwork. Lucky casts a powerful spell that creates a whirlpool to distract the sharks. The heroes watch with alarm, fearing the consequences of the heroes' actions. The whirlpool forms a huge vortex that pulls in water, carves a deep hole, and leaves traces of magic around. Locke notices the water receding, revealing the seabed, and is surprised by the unusual sight. Noticing the enemy's limited movement, the hero and the animal decide to use the moment to their advantage and act. Madeline urges anyone who can move to attack her opponents, showing determination and readiness to act. Mermaids and heroes join the fight and use their abilities to attack enemies. Startled, the huge shark reacts with shock, not expecting such a powerful attack. Locke is stunned to hear the shark speak. The enemy watches the chaos, trying to make sense of what is happening around him. The young man addresses the opposing leader and demands the release of the captive sisters, showing determination and confidence. Puzzled by the situation, the shark leader says firmly he will not let the heroes take them. The leader summons the fishermen to unleash their power and destroy the heroes, displaying firm resolve for battle. A group of sharks attacks fiercely, showing a clear increase in their abilities. Locke realizes the opponents have become much stronger, leaving him alarmed and surprised. Lucky joins the fight, using his abilities to defend against shark attacks. Fenrir sees the enemies moving slowly and not posing a real threat. The enemy draws on all their magic to launch a full-scale attack, creating intense tension. The shark displays its new powerful body. The enemy claims he is invincible because a magic sphere greatly increases his speed. The enemy uses the sphere's power cautiously to avoid hurting himself. The shark leader clutches a mysterious ball while a little girl on the dragon's back snatches it from him. In Dragon, the girl says she now has a magic orb and calls the hero daddy. Despite trying to get up, the shark hero remains weak while Locke praises the girl. The hero sees the sphere surrounded by magic like the mermaid leaders and feels immediate surprise and alarm. Agreeing to help handle the sphere, the mermaid assumes it was using data from her research. The enemy insists he needs his magic sphere and asks the heroes to return it. Surprised, the mermaid watches the magic sphere fall and shatter, leaving the shark hero in shock. The mermaid comforts the shark and tells him nothing terrible has happened and that he will soon find something better. Locke asks the shark whether his name is Pedro. Unable to explain his actions, he controlled the fishermen and attacked the mermaids, revealing his lack of understanding of the situation. Pedro admits he was banished from his tribe and wanted to prove his worth. He explains that in the shark tribe, fin size determines how much magical power someone has. A few days ago, Shark says, a strange woman and a merchant came up to him while he sat watching the moon. A woman and a merchant offered Pedro a magical sphere and said they wanted to help him improve. He explains that if you hold this sphere in a sleeping fisherman's hand, you can gain power over him and surprise the other characters. The heroine asks Pedro what made him attack their group. Pedro says he was ordered to attack the mermaid village and told he would receive a magical sphere in return for the captured mermaids. Shocked and angry, the mermaid could not understand how the shark acted so mercilessly. Shark Hero admits he was determined to prove his worth at any cost. Locke asks where the mermaids the shark gave to the merchant were sent. Pedro is unsure but thinks they were sent to Brandon. Surprised, Locke turns to Demorta. Determined, the mermaid says it will take some time, but it can be done. Demart warns Pedro he must now prove his worth on his own, not by relying on a temporary power that could destroy him. The mermaid points out he broke the sphere, and that's what worries Pedro. The heroes set out for Brandon. Locke believes mermaids are hiding somewhere in this city. The dragon says those who cannot become human will stay at sea, and the others should stay quiet in the city. Locke Notes points out that some mermaids can transform into humans, highlighting their unique abilities. Mermaids say they sometimes turn into humans to visit the city safely and wear special clothes that dry quickly. A mermaid reveals that shipwrecks on the seafloor hold valuable treasures that can be used. Locke reports happily that they've found the mermaid trader's secret lair and urges the others to move on. The team finds the building unguarded, which surprises them and makes them question where the target is. The hero insists the others stay put while he handles all the problems himself. Finding the door open, Locke criticizes the security for being careless. Surveying the dark room full of boxes and chains, the hero senses danger and readies for potential opponents. Locke spots several cages holding noisy, aggressive-looking monsters. Seeing the monster's unnatural appearance, the young man feels anxious and surprised. Locke finds a complex magic circle on the floor, marking where experiments and research are taking place. The hero finds himself in a place where vile experiments on monsters were carried out and sees a magic circle used for synthesis. A sealed cage of water holds mermaids and other creatures, and the hero watches in shock. Seeing the glass is too thick for the mermaids to hear him, the young man declares he has come to help them. Locke inspects the room with the magic circle and finds he cannot open the door. The hero finds the door secured by a lock strengthened by magic, making it nearly impossible to breach. A hero talks to a caged creature that offers to reveal the key's location. The creature in the cage introduces itself as Dracul, a representative of the Arecan gods, the grandson of Arid's leader, and asks who the hero is. Dracula offers to free the man, who then promises to tell him about the key and reveals he was locked here after the attack. Locke agrees to help but insists on freeing the mermaids first, saying this is not the time to talk. The mermaids thank the hero for his help, and he checks that they are all right. The hero asks if every kidnapped mermaid is present. A mermaid says the queen was taken away for auction, shocking the hero. Locke warns that anyone who can turn into a human must leave at once because he fears the hall's strict security. The mermaids admit that none of those present can become human and express sincere regret. Locke asks Shannon and Gargoyle for help. Dracula thanks Locke for his help and promises he will definitely repay the debt. Caged creatures ask the hero for help because they are in a difficult situation too. Shark says Pedro's magic couldn't control them because they also have powerful magic. Shark asks Locke for help, and Locke admits they were handed over to the traders after losing control of the situation. The hero freed the remaining captives, contacted them, and expressed relief and gratitude. Locke sees the only mermaid left is the queen, so the rescue must continue. The young man suggests using Lucky to find the queen by scent and receives his consent. The queen says she wants to help Mother, and others offer to join in. The heroine reveals that May, who seems like an ordinary girl, is actually a princess and not a mother, surprising the other heroes. Locke accepts the queen's help, but warns her she must follow his orders to complete the mission. The group lays out their plan, noting that in the worst case they'll have to use the gold to save the queen. Locke asks Madeline to prepare more treasure. Lucky confirms the queen's scent lies right here. Locke says firmly he will look around while the others wait outside and points out that the queen has not yet entered the auction room. The queen apologizes for the interruption and insists on joining them, showing determination and a willingness to help. Confidently, the hero promises to bring back the heroine's mother, and she agrees to trust him, showing hope. The queen asks Locke to care for her mother, and he agrees, emphasizing his responsibility and the care he will provide. Locke enters the shop, where a man regards him with a weary expression. Noticing that Locke is well informed about his affairs, the salesman asks why he knows those details. The hero displays money to show he is willing to pay for information and service. The interlocutor laughs at the heroes, showing he believes they know what they're talking about, and invites them to follow him. The speaker says they offer a wide selection of special monsters, ranging from human-like forms to fused creatures. The man points out that an extremely rare creature was just delivered, piquing the hero's interest. Noticing the hooded man's strange behavior, the hero watches the tense man order him to stop. Surprised by the foul odor, the hooded man asks what caused it. The man says the smell isn't his, but the hooded man insists it is very strong and foul. The hooded man studies the hero closely, his glowing eyes showing growing tension and suspicion. The stranger admits the smell is odd and comes from the protagonist, and he starts to worry that their mission may fail because of it. When the woman asks if Locke knows another girl named Lydia, he is surprised and says he does not know her. Studying the woman closely, the hero leaves her wondering whether it's really true. The hooded man apologizes if he accidentally scared the heroes and says he is giving off magic similar to Lydia's. Locke and the man discuss the man's identity, noting his mysterious and unknown nature. One character explains that this man is the witch Riza, who makes magical tools, though even he does not know all the details of her work. Locke knows he must be careful around the woman who knows Lydia, and he voices his concern. The man asks Locke if he is glad they finally made it to the auction. For the first time in the auction's history, the Mermaid Queen is offered as a special lot. Locke realizes the Mermaid Queen is May's mother. One character says all mermaids are considered beautiful, but this queen's striking figure draws special admiration. The hero is surprised to learn the Mermaid Queen is worth about 300 million. The man insists that queens are a species that can fight, so their price is always high and not negotiable. Gris has long been interested in this mermaid, but he warns the hero that even 300 million might not be enough to buy her. A dangerous merchant, the son of a wealthy merchant, will spend huge sums to get the people or things he wants. Locke sees how dangerous the situation is and decides to delay his attempt to get the mermaid because it is too risky. The hero discovers the Mermaid Queen's price will fall so much she can be bought cheaply at an auction. Locke accepts the proposal and asks how they can get into the auction, since it is usually closed to creature buyers. The man thanks Locke for his help and hints that the auction will be in 6 days at 1800. The man tells the young man that with his protection, he will get safe entry to the auction site. Worried about her mother's safety, the heroine fears she will be sold at auction in 6 days. Locke sees that the Mermaid Queen's location is protected by very powerful magic and realizes she cannot be freed by normal means. He recommends rescuing the mermaids peacefully, if possible, and decides to consult the guards first. A group of heroes encountered a dragon that was surprised by their arrival. The dragon recognizes the hero and looks surprised. Locke asks why he was captured again. Frustrated, Draco watches city guards ignore warehouses full of monsters, revealing the system's corruption. The guard angrily orders him to be silent, and Draco says the guard calls him a liar only because he's a half-breed, reminding him that he already spoke of monsters created by fusion. The guard rejects the dragon's words, saying no one would believe such heresy and insisting the warehouse belongs to Chad, repeating it to make his point. The guard explains Chad viewed it as both a distribution center and a rehabilitation center, doing a lot for the city, despite his involvement in the creature trade. The hero discovers Chad is selling creatures, surprising the others. Draco asks whether they took bribes from Chad, points out the guard's corruption, and urges a proper investigation instead of ignoring the situation. Standing beside Lucky, the heroine sternly warns the guard that he cannot insult anyone at will. The guard vows to use the full range of punishments on the dragon and orders him taken away, showing determination. Locke sees that the local guards are colluding with Chad, exposing the corruption in the system. Grateful for the dragon's help, the hero promises to free him soon and is determined to keep that promise. The The young man suggests they brief everyone on the situation while preparing for the next move. The hero points out that without solid proof, it is impossible to accuse a merchant who is closely tied to the city and controls it. Locke warns it will be hard to win the Mermaid Queen at auction, especially with key players like Chad and Grizz involved. The heroes agree they must learn more about Chad and Grizz because there is an alternative to solving the problem with bargaining. A team of heroes talks with local residents to gather more information about the situation. The hero ends by saying they are sure the man on the ship is Chad. Everyone Locke talks to in town says Chad is a good, wonderful person. When the heroes ask about Grizz, opinions change, and some call him a stupid son or the worst, revealing a negative attitude toward him. Others accuse Grizz of assembling a private army of vicious monsters and trying to seize the whole city, alarming the heroes. Locke realizes he will have to face not only Chad, but Grizz as well if the rumors are true, and decides to act. Lucky says he's hungry and stresses the need for a quick solution to the current situation. Shannon laughs and says she isn't hungry, which could explain her behavior. Lacko apologizes for not having eaten yet and offers to help. A rare gray wolf stands before him, surprising the others. The group discussed selling a wolf, noting it looked interesting and could be valuable. Locke makes it clear he will never sell Lucky, showing how much he loves the animal. A man offers money to solve a problem or to buy something. With a cheerful tone, he announces he is buying the gray wool for 30 times the market price, surprising the hero. Firmly, the young man refuses to sell Lucky, saying no amount of money will make him do it. Introducing himself as Grizz, the only son of a wealthy merchant from Fandel, the man displays high status and confidence. Locke insists he will never put Lucky up for sale, stressing how special it is. Grizz tells the hero there is nothing in the city he can't buy, showing his wealth and influence. An older man proudly says Mr. Grizz owns the whole city, and those around him admire him. Pleased, the butler points out his popularity and authority. Onlookers keep joyfully shouting Grizz's name to show support and acknowledge his power. The hero stands firm and refuses to sell Lucky despite Grizz's persuasion and pressure. Lucky angrily tells Chris to shut up, showing he either doesn't understand the situation or is being stubborn. Lucky speaks sternly to the man, stresses how important his words are, and says he will not repeat them. The wolf declares firmly that even after 1,000 years, no one, not even an insect, has the right to command him, and says he is loyal to only one master, Luke. Lucky's strong spirit left Griss's men discouraged and powerless. Locke notices Griss's men are under heavy pressure and overhears Lucky talking about how the weak have fallen. Griss admires Lucky and says his loyalty deserves respect. The merchant offers to feed Lucky anything he wants and invites the hero to join him. Surprised, the hero learns the merchant withstood Lucky's pressure, and Griss tells the common man to calculate the amount by multiplying the number by 100. Locke accepts the offer, but his look toward the merchant shows doubt and displeasure. The hero offers to tell where he found Lucky and asks how the other person feels about the offer. He demands the Mermaid Queen in exchange for money. Grizzly flatly refuses to give up the queen, saying the mermaids are far more valuable and he won't do it. The queen is also part of Griss's plan. Call him poor and say this discussion is beyond his level. Grizzly says Locke is interesting and praises his courage, pointing out that few can stand up to him. The merchant asks the group to come along. The heroes pass through a grand interior filled with statues and rich decorations that create an impressive atmosphere. The heroes continue down the corridor, surrounded by the space's luxury and grandeur. The hero says the mansion is so large it cannot hold everyone. Locke calls it enormous, and Griss says he could never earn enough to afford it. Grizz displays rare figurines, while the heroes spot white wolves. Locke believes Grizzly is collecting wolves for their fur, and says they look like mini Luckies and are considered rare monsters. Doubt crosses the hero's face, but the older man assures that everything is ready to continue the conversation. Hesitating, the boy agrees and warns it could be a trap, and Granz assures him it is lunchtime. Locke nods reluctantly, but keeps warning about the danger, and the merchant smiles and says food is the best thanks. The hero watches the animal eating hungrily and enjoys the sight. The animal eagerly devours the food. Lucky notices the room has no smell of poison or anything similar and reassures Locke not to worry. Riz insists he never stoops to base methods. The merchant insists he can achieve everything without resorting to dishonorable methods. The older man says they should move on to the main topic since their wishes have already been met. After dinner, Lucky goes out into the garden feeling full, and the hero offers to start the conversation first, hinting at a plan to help the mermaids. The Lock says he doesn't know if a boss at Lucky's level exists outside the royal capital, since the wolf was one of the 10th floor bosses. The older man says the hero is well informed and recommends such a boss for the 5th grade. Gris says he constantly gets different information and points out he is, after all, the son of a merchant. Grit recommends training with mermaids. The heroes discover the fishermen plan to attack the city soon, causing surprise and alarm. The merchant says Chad once used a disaster prediction device to predict attacks by white wolves and by other cities. He wants to prepare his army for underwater combat, especially if the enemy is led by a queen. Gris plans how to limit damage to the city with help from mermaids skilled in underwater combat. The man says buying an expensive fortune-telling device seems suspicious. The hero suspects a hidden agenda in the situation and implies something is wrong with Chad's predictions. Locked questions suspect Chad of secretly trading illegal creatures and conducting chimera experiments. Gris explains how Chad quickly won the trust of the town's residents by setting up free food and medical distribution points that operated discreetly. Many of the guards are bribed, he points out, making the situation even harder for the heroes. An older man angrily says the traveling vendors are behaving disrespectfully in his town. Locke realizes Gris is not what the servants claim. Locke says Gris is very smart, but he's heard people call him just a stupid rich man's son. The man agrees with this view, saying he is indeed seen that way. Gris says these conversations are easier when everyone shares an understanding of the situation. The hero shows firm resolve. He asked if he could rely on the older man to help gather evidence against Chad. Locke asks again, hinting that it would be nice if the request were fulfilled. The hero asks Gris to hand over the mermaid queen if he wins her at auction. Locke surprises the merchant by offering several trainers for underwater training. The hero says he can help immediately, drawing the attention of those around him. An older man looks surprised. Grizzly approaches the hero, asks his name, and confirms that he is Locke. The merchant says the hero has earned his attention and offers to cooperate, adding that he is impatient to begin working together. Locke accepts the offer, starting his partnership with Gris with a handshake. The heroine explains that the sphere not only controls people, but also collects mana. She suspects the sphere's mana is being gathered to bring back a demon that once threatened the world. Based on old documents, the girl says no human could possess magic that powerful. Surprised, Locke asks for details and says this could be the same demon they mentioned earlier. Based on the available information, the heroine points out that there is a high probability the spheres are connected to this demon. Demort voices doubt, calling her words mere speculation. It's hard to imagine who would devise such a plan, and she warns that resurrecting a demon could bring great danger to the world. The hero firmly declares they must find the sphere's creator immediately to stop the demon's resurrection. Locke names Risa, a dealer of magical tools at Chad's shop, as the prime suspect. Understanding the importance of the situation, the young man asks Mortate to allow him to continue studying the demon so he can better prepare for the upcoming events. Locke reveals he has been quietly gathering information on Chad and his ties to the demon, showing how crucial the upcoming auction is. Characters stand in line outside Mr. Nada's soup kitchen to get food the day before the auction. A noisy, lively scene forms as people line up for their share of food. Residents thank Mr. Chad for the free meals, highlighting his kindness and care. The hero spots a free healing point with people queued up, struck by the scale of Chad's activities. Yuta reassures another character that their turn will come soon and everything will be fine, but they remain doubtful. Lucky realizes Chad actually tricked everyone. Locke regrets that Chad became involved in questionable activities, even though those actions seemed noble. The characters see the guild warn of an imminent attack by fishermen, alarming the town's residents. Chad posted a notice on the bulletin board warning adventurers of a possible fisherman attack in the coming days. The commoner voices doubt, asking whether the fisherman will actually arrive as Gris predicted. Locke notes reports that Mr. Chad's prediction proved true, causing surprise. The characters spot a child who looks familiar and are surprised to see him. Frightened, the child screams, and the hero asks what happened while trying to calm him. Lucky shows interest in the child, but the child backs away in fear and calls the animal a big dog. A child asks for help, and Lucky insists he is not a dog. The hero sees the situation getting worse as the child keeps screaming in fear, The others try to calm the child, but nothing works. At last, the baby quiets down, surprising the heroes, and they notice it seems braver and ask how it happened. Shannon offers to share a cookie with a child to calm him and asks if he is hungry. The child admits he is hungry, but says it is not the main problem, hinting at more serious issues. Alarmed, the boy says his little sister has gone missing. He says his sister tripped and hurt her leg, so she went to see a doctor. The boy went for the food himself, but when he came back, it was gone from the tent. Offering to help, the heroine points out Lucky can find his sister, using his excellent sense of smell. Eager to start, the boy agrees to join the heroes in the search for his missing sister. Lucky agrees to be called Dog for the time being, and even says he appreciates the nickname, while the hero confirms everything is fine. Now it's up to Luck. Dazzling speed makes the beast move like the wind and draws admiration from the other characters. The wolf soars through the air with pleasure, showing his freedom and joy in movement. Thanking Shannon for helping with the baby, Locke learns she has a younger brother who's a bit younger than her, and he praises her for being good with the kids. Shannon asks if the boy's parents are nearby, and he says they are not around. The boy describes how a pack of white wolves suddenly attacked their town, and how his father and others came to defend it. The boy says they were about to go somewhere, but you tripped and got hurt, which brought back painful memories for them. Locke spots a strange tattoo on the boy's neck. A team of heroes approaches a large building. Locke and Shannon spot a sign that reads Chad Con Residence and are surprised to find themselves there. After coming up with a plan of action, the hero decides they must speak with Gris and stresses the importance of the situation. Locke suggests Chad use the free healing points to kidnap orphans who came for treatment, which shocks the other characters. Gris greets Locke with easy familiarity and friendly warmth. Worried about the child's safety and well-being, the boy asks Gris to watch him for a while. Gris agrees to help, and Locke says he has questions to ask. Shannon apologizes to the boy, says they were unable to bring his sister back, and promises to keep searching. The heroine tells the boy they will not give up and will definitely return Nayuta, showing their determination. Now just point out that she always says that, and then laugh, showing he's happy or embarrassed. The dark-hooded character says Dob is not here now, sounding doubtful or disappointed. Locke asks whether the woman mentioned Lydia earlier, and notes how important that is to their current situation. A young man says he heard rumors about Lydia while walking around the city, and he stresses that those rumors may be key to understanding what is happening. A hooded woman concludes Lydia is hiding on the west coast and gives specific details about a possible location. The hero says Lydia is seriously injured or in danger and mentions the flood that happened after the Horde left the capital, linking the events. Locke says he decided to describe his attempts to find someone, but his account may not be accurate. Masked character grins, says she's injured, then adds she'll say hello to Dob. Locke says they will now share information with Pedro and the mermaids, indicating the current stage of the investigation or search is complete. Locke asks whether this is Mr. Chad's house, sounding surprised and cautious. The guard reacts sharply to the hero's arrival, demanding his identity and showing distrust and irritation. Recognizing the hero as a fan of Mr. Chad, the guards at the gate offer to help, showing their willingness to support him. The man reluctantly agrees to let Shannon inside for a short time. The heroine apologizes for what happened and reassures the guard, checking on her that she is fine. Cautious, the heroes enter the building, aware there may be traps. A huge courtyard stretches in front of the building, and they react with surprise at how large it is. A pack of red coyotes rushes in and attacks the heroes. The hero volunteers to fight the B-class monsters, saying there are many but they are not much of a threat. Locke turns to Patra, who is enjoying herself. Seeking forgiveness, Petra tells the animals they must pass through this place. The animals respond with displeasure and aggression, ready to defend their territory or block the hero's movement. From behind, Patra looks like a giant ant, turns aggressive, bares its teeth and prepares to attack, making the scene tense. Animals circle the girl and back away from her words. Relieved, the heroine speaks to the animals, showing the situation was resolved peacefully, likely because of her efforts. Locke thinks the little girl is pointing out that children are in the building ahead. The girl calls the hero daddy to show trust and respect. The heroes climb the stairs and find the basement entrance, and one of them says it's a basement, indicating they are nearing where the prisoners may be. According to Shannon Admire, Chad says he is very smart, likely referring to a strategy or his actions. Inside, the group discusses making more money by selling commoners rather than healing them, and they note that the synthesized magical beasts fetch high prices, revealing the commercial side. The worker wants to join the next raid and is eager to help and prove himself. The hero realizes the sleeping flower is working and thanks CL for her help. Locke reassures the children not to worry and asks how they are feeling. Recognizing Raylan, the girl says his name with joy, confirming he really came to help. The heroine says a way out will be found if you don't give up and adds that she predicted help would come. The girl admits she was always taught that women must be strong and says everything is unfolding, as Ryland said. The heroine refuses the offer and grabs the keys, making clear the urgency of the situation. The girl insists that picking walks is a lady's job, surprising the hero who asks if she is serious. The heroine says she had long been looking for a chance to escape and was worried about how to free so many people from captivity. The girl offers to free the remaining captives and says she is glad the heroes arrived in time to rescue them. A little girl asks to be shown the right way to help free others. The heroes celebrate their success, especially Patra, who receives praise for her actions, and everyone notes she is one step closer to becoming a lady. Relieved that everyone is free, the group prepares to confront the red coyotes that still pose a threat. Patrick claims to be intimidating and shows confidence in her abilities, though the other characters seem a little skeptical. Patra encourages the girl, saying she can do it if she is strong enough. This grill looks confident. The heroes decide to find a divination device to learn more about future events before returning to Gris, and they agree the mission is important. Locke asks Grisick to take care of the children, noting that Raylan's little sister is with them, and the hero smiles and agrees to help. Grizzly offers to help but hesitates, showing uncertainty. The merchant says he contacted relatives in the royal capital and sent one of them there, while the girl adds that she misses her older brother. When asked by the man, the heroine replies confidently that everything is fine, thanks him for his help, and stresses the importance of their joint efforts. Gris, wearing a serious expression, says tomorrow will be fun, hinting at the events to come. Locke scans the building and sees that all they have to do is get ready at 6 p.m. for the next day, and he is pleased to realize they have an advantage. A large hall with several tables of people chatting and drinking, creating an atmosphere of celebration or an important event. Two characters are talking as one raises a toast and the other listens attentively, creating a formal, ceremonial setting. The heroes confirm where the creature auction will be and point out the large turnout, highlighting how important the event is. Gris reassures the hero that he always shows up for deals over 100 million and that there is no need to worry. The auctioneer opens the sale of creatures and greets everyone present. First slot holds a male of the dragon god race with a starting bid of 100 units. Bidders are actively raising their bids. Varys agrees to help Locke win the auction. The hero notices Gris has placed a bid of 500 units, surprising the other auction participants. The auctioneer announces the winner, the bidder with the highest bid of 500 units, and asks whether there are any other bidders. Locke agrees that a price of 500 units is fair compared with the creature's market value. Gris agrees that 500 units is a fair price, especially for the dragon god race, which is unpopular because they are hard to control. The man jokes that people expect him to act that way because he's known as a rich, spoiled kid. The auctioneer announces the next lot is one of the brightest sea pearls, a fighting type that's hard to catch. The mermaid queen steps onto the stage, drawing surprise and admiration from the crowd. Gris places a 100 million bet, showing serious intent and a willingness to spend large sums. Grizz, one of the influential players, arrived and the other auction participants reacted with surprise and tension. Bids keep climbing as one bidder offers 130 million and another 120 million, showing intense competition for the lot. Gris suddenly raises her bid to 300 million, shocking the other bidders and underscoring her determination to win the auction. The auctioneer asks if any more bidders are willing to raise their bids, but everyone remains silent, so the man has won with the last bid. The trader announces a winning bid of 300 million, marking the end of the auction and the close of trading. Gris boasts that he is a rich son, stressing his superiority over the other bidders, and Locke thanks him for his help. The other participants agree it is time to settle the score, showing they are ready for the next step. Chad mentions Mr. Grizzly, highlighting his important involvement in current events. Chad thanks you for making the auction a success. Gris is busy drafting something, possibly a document or contract, while Chad asks for it. The man in the long coat agrees to revise his question if he can learn more, showing he wants more information. Grizz asks about the fishermen attacking the city, suggesting recent events or rumors could affect the current situation. Gris is surprised to learn that most of the creatures for sale are illegal, showing how serious the problem is. The merchant claims Chad kidnaps orphans wherever he goes and forces them into slavery, pointing to his reputation and methods. Gris says he has also studied the magical divination device, demonstrating knowledge of the subject. With a serious expression, the character asks why everyone there is trying to look innocent, calling out the group's suspicious behavior. Chad scolds Mr. Gris for being rude and notes that testing the magical device does not inspire confidence, stressing that he does not trust Mr. Gris's actions. Worried or angry, the girl may be thinking about the situation or getting ready for the next step. Gris says that after the kidnapping, the girl was held in a basement with other orphans, showing Chad's severe abuse. Chad is pleased that Gris confirmed what he said, though he expected something similar, and says only the townspeople trust him, highlighting his local popularity and authority. Gris points out that Chad missed something. Chad discovers the girl's name is Nayuda Louise, the daughter of a ducal family, surprising the others. A girl says she was kidnapped and held in a basement, suggesting serious charges against Chad. Nayuda reveals that Chada instigated the White Wolves' attack on the city, making the earlier accusations more serious. Chad is surprised to learn the family is the Lewises and wonders how anyone in that family could have survived. She points to proof she is the daughter of Duke Louis by showing a tattoo on her neck. A tattooed coat of arms on the girl's body confirms she belongs to the Louis family. They see the coat of arms on a notice and ask what the symbol means. The girl explains it proves she is descended from the Louis family. Gris says each aristocratic family uses its own secret dye to make these tattoos, but he adds that not all members know because it can be dangerous. Gris is confident that everyone's true identities, status, and origins will soon be revealed. The merchant debates who to trust, the Duke's daughter or a common slave trader. In a tense standoff, Gris tells Chad to surrender, making clear how serious the situation is. Chad looks confused by recent events or others' actions, his face showing surprise. Armed men close in on the main characters, creating a tense, dangerous atmosphere that signals a likely confrontation. Chad shows surprise and displeasure, saying that every guard in the city serves him. Smirking, he calls Gris a stupid rich man and displays contempt and self-righteousness. Chad urges the others to be careful and warns them of the consequences if the negotiations fail. Locke tells Shannon to stay and keep watch, showing he knows where Chad is headed and will likely take further action. Gris opposes leaving Shannon alone, calling it the wrong choice and stressing the need for teamwork and everyone's safety. Shannon attacks the enemy with fury, weapon drawn, creating a tense and dangerous encounter. Actively defending herself from the attack, the girl shows fighting skills and determination to face the threat. Characters react with surprise and alarm to Shannon's powers. The heroine admits she trains with Fenrir, highlighting her martial arts experience. Surprised, Shannon reacts when she hears that Locke called her cute. The character smiles as they greet the heroes. The heroes discuss the slave's story, and one points out it is long, showing how complex the situation is. The man displays prepared mermaids and special containers, making clear he is ready to sell or use them. Cool thanks Locke for his help, indicating he feels indebted to him again. The hero is surprised and grateful when he learns that he wanted to thank the dragon for his help. Surprised, Dracula asks why the mermaid costs 300 million, and Locke replies that it really does cost that much. The dragon protests, saying he cannot accept that his race, the dragon gods, could be valued at that price. Locke urges the dragon to return the mermaid to the sea, showing how urgent the situation is. The dragon agrees but points out that the hero abandons him cruelly, underscoring the emotional strain. The hero finds himself in a difficult situation because he is trying to capture the queen of the mermaids. Gris tells Chad that running away won't help. The traders demand surrender and say they have a witness who can confirm their accusations. Chad said he wanted to hear what others had to say, which showed curiosity or enjoyment about what was happening. The mustached man says the witness's testimony would be unpleasant, but only if she stays alive, implying she is in danger. A fishman swims through the water, making the scene chaotic and tense. Chad and Locke exchange a look. One smiles while the other appears serious or worried. A figure in a hat and long coat shouts that it is time to take revenge for all the humiliations, signaling a conflict. A group of fishermen surround Chad, creating a tense mood that suggests they may attack, something he did not expect after sending them to fight the main characters. Chad points at Pedro, calls him the enemy, and understands what's going on. The heroine explains that if he were watching Pedro, he would be sent to prison, stressing the serious consequences of his actions. Chad sounds surprised and asks why the mermaids are helping the fishermen. Confidently, she says everything is fine and they know what the enemy is planning, stressing that her group's awareness of the situation could be key to their strategy. Shannon angrily accuses Chad of using the fishermen against the mermaids, implying betrayal or treason, and says he will pay. Chad is determined not to let things go as planned and is ready to step in to change the course of events. The man looks frightened, likely because the snake suddenly intervened. On a ship, the heroes face a tense situation, and Chad asks for help, expressing fear and anxiety. Locke reassures the mermaid queen and urges her to go to her people quickly, showing confidence and determination despite what is happening around him. Declaring loyalty, the queen says she will follow Locke and offer her help. The mermaid wants to pass her throne to her daughter, so her daughter can follow the main character on his journey. The queen of the sea creatures asks the hero to be the girl's friend, smiling as she offers her friendship and underlining her wish to work together. Locke accepts that the slave contract is no longer valid and offers to discuss the matter with the other group members to find a collective solution, while the girl beside him looks surprised but trusting. Suddenly, the queen proposes marriage to the hero, leaving him surprised and confused. Locke refuses the marriage proposal, but lets the girl join their team. The queen says happily that she looks forward to working together and adds that she is now simply Marrow. At that moment, a mysterious hooded figure appears, his face completely hidden. She says Lydia with a serious expression, showing the name holds an important memory or connection. On a moonlit shore, two characters stand, and one in dark clothes tells Lydia that the scientific works were stolen and there is nothing to it. The hooded woman explains Lydia fell silent while they were apart and says it was actually more convenient for her, leaving her companion staring in bewilderment. By declaring that eternal darkness is coming, she vows to do everything to make Lydia lose her voice forever, heightening the tension. The fight between the two girls erupts suddenly. Lydia strikes her opponent with a powerful blow that sends loud bangs and explosions. Her opponent retreats but stays on her feet. Expressing concern, the woman says Lydia must be badly injured despite her strength. The woman suffers intense pain as powerful flames, called the endless flames of hell, rain down on him. Without warning, a strange figure appears in the shape of a skull, surrounded by magical symbols. Skull introduces herself as Damort, Lydia's master. The situation stays tense, but Damort remains calm and confident, which worries the woman. A look of amazement crosses her face when she hears the name Damort. It is hard for her to believe that such a powerful being stands before her. Damort says the scientific papers were stolen on purpose to force the heroes to return them. If they do not comply, she offers another fight. Surprised to see a skull-shaped figure she calls the Great Sage, the woman asks why he is there and seems worried about his appearance. Reese finds it ironic that Lydia's student is also involved in stealing scientific papers and adds she's grateful despite the odd coincidence. The girl turns back to the hooded figure and asks to pose one more question. Lydia asks why a woman would need to bring a demon back. The hooded figure denies creating the demonic sphere and says it already existed, surprising the other person, who struggles to understand what is happening. Lydia believes the woman is telling the truth, despite her earlier doubts. The heroine asks Reese for a favor. Lydia highlights the heroine's magical talent and potential, but warns that the act she committed could bring severe punishment. Her advice is for the heroine to use her time in captivity for self-improvement and research that benefits others, and to reflect on her actions. Reese looks surprised and worried, but trusts the mysterious character's words. Lydia says you can trust the great sage who offers such wise advice. Chad sits in prison for violating slave laws, leading a rebellion, and committing other crimes, looking worried and thoughtful in his cell. A few days later, Reese faces an investigation, receives harsh punishment and a long prison sentence, yet she appears surprisingly happy. Ryland and his sister contact relatives to plan their next steps. They decide to live together and form a new family. The fisherman who had been manipulated earlier gradually rebuilds their relationships with the mermaids. The heroes notice the city is calm again after everything that happened. Gris agrees and says the situation has settled. Gris thanks Locke, saying all success comes from Locke's efforts and that the townspeople now know Chad's true identity. A team of people and creatures completed an important task, showing it was possible only because they pooled their efforts. Together they carried loads and handled a variety of jobs. The hero thanks the merchant for his support and shows respect and gratitude for his help in a difficult situation. In a dark, mysterious place, something happens at the same moment. The heroes recount their exploits and successes. The mysterious figure looks worried and says the situation is getting too serious even for him. That reaction shows the danger and difficulty involved, and he casts some kind of spell. Now a dragon appears, sealed inside a crystal.